Welcome, welcome, crew, guys, gals, ghouls, and other worldly beings. Let's climb aboard the mothership, secure our tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in Colorful, Colorado. I'm your ghostess, TessaTNT, broadcasting live from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, and welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. It is an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege to be able to hang out with you tonight, and Memorial Day is coming up here pretty soon, and even if it's not Memorial Day, it's a good day to be grateful and appreciative and honor those of service and those of service that we have lost and have yet to lose. We're in some crazy times right now, so yeah. Pray for them. If you pray, put some positive energy out them put some positive energy out there for them, and keep them in your thoughts. Because without them, we would not have our way of life. And I know we got listeners all over the world. And I did record our top 12 geolocated listeners, and we have the US at number 1, Germany at number 2, Japan at number 3, Pakistan at number 4, the UK at number 5, Netherlands number 6, South Africa number 7, Belgium number 8, Switzerland number 9, Spain number 10, India 11, and Kuwait 12. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you're here. So, I don't know about you, but I have had some UFO sightings of my own, and I believe my first one was, I want to say 2012. And I had always believed in UFOs because my dad believed in UFOs. I always believed in the paranormal because I actually saw and experienced some paranormal things, which is why I have issues sleeping and why I like to do things late at night. Why are we starting off so late tonight? Well, you can ask my kids because they just would not stay out of my office. And then I had, again, sound issues, and the way life goes, you get delayed. If your life is anything like mine, it's pretty chaotic. But yeah, I figured since I'm getting such a late start and I don't want to leave you guys hanging, I would do my live tonight, and we would be doing some trippy TikToks on the topic of UFO sightings internationally, because as per usual, it is happening all over the world. And these aren't just hobbyists out there flying their little drones and stuff. It's a bit more than that. We are not alone, to say the least. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up our screen here for our trippy TikToks. And I'm going to reconfigure the screen over here really quick, so hopefully the screen we'll be watching is bigger, or at least somewhat centered. I don't want to do it so small you can't see whose page it is. So I think 50 will do us good. All right, well, let's get into it, shall we?
The Pentagon has released a second batch of declassified UFO files. One newly released video shows an F-16 operated by the U.S. Air Force Air National Guard shooting something down over Lake Huron in 2023, according to the Pentagon. The government calls these UAPs, or unidentified anomalous phenomena. Another video from October 2019, almost 18 minutes long, caught what appears to be a formation in the skies above the Persian Gulf, per the Pentagon. And an infrared sensor aboard a military craft in the U.S. Central Command Area of Responsibility operating around the Middle East and South Asia likely took this video of black dots rapidly flying in the sky in September 2019, according to the Pentagon. The first round of files was posted earlier this month after a directive from President Donald Trump. However, government officials stressed they could not come to a, quote, definitive determination on the nature of objects seen in the files.
Okay, this is like, please don't stop, please.
You guys, watch this. Look at the seriousness in her. I don't know if that's her sister or her friend. Their eyebrows and stuff are kind of the same, so they could be sisters. I don't know. But yeah. This one is crazy. Can you relate?
Watch this video. This is like the third time. I've tried to make this video. So, we watching the news, and we were seeing the stuff on the news about like UFOs and stuff. And I live like out in the woods with a lot of property, no street lights, no neighbors, no nothing. I'm like out here, okay? And so I'm like, hey, we should go outside and see if we see anything in the sky. And I'm going to stitch a video of like one, it's not that little one we caught a video of nothing in comparison, so okay, I have a lot of lights on in my house. I live in a mobile home. I typically have lights on one and the other. It's a bad habit, I know, I'm very sorry. But, so all the lights are on. I tell her, I turn off the porch light and like go down into the yard. It's like open, you can, and we look at the sky and you see these like two luminescent, like aqua blue green stars. They're pretty big though, and they're moving quickly. And then they separate from each other, and then they spin around each other, and they just take off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think we just saw one. Pull out our phones, you see another one, I get a video, I'm trying to stitch it here. And then it's almost like I'm trying to record with our phones. It's like sky's black. I don't know. We look up in the sky. They are everywhere. Are they not? They're everywhere. And I'm at this point like, oh my gosh, we're not fearful. And so we grab my dog, and the end of my driveway, you turn the corner, go down a long dirt road, probably about 50 to 60 feet. We get to the end of the driveway, we turn the dirt road, and it's like 10 o'clock at night, okay? And as we turn the corner, you can hear like a and mind you, we're not around any power lines. We're looking for an airplane in the sky. What is making this humming? It's getting louder and louder. And then the sound stops. And I get this weird, like, strange, just strange feeling. And I say to her, can I tell you something that's going to freak you out? And she's like, no. And so we turn around to walk towards my house. And we just around the corner, coming up the dirt road, and I can't keep it anymore because the loom feeling going on. It's like, wait, 10 seconds later. I said, we're not alone right now, we're being watched.
And then my dog shoots off into the woods.
Yeah.
And then we start walking faster. And then we call her back, she comes back.
And now we're standing in the yard.
And now we're walking to the
and we get a little quiet. I think we're just kind of like trying to take in what's happening.
Okay, so there's a pond outside the house. Like a pond that has a bunch of toes in it and not riveting tonight.
Yeah, they're so loud all the time. And it's dead silent now. And we're not saying anything to each other. I think we're processing. And then
it sounds like somebody took several glasses
like 7, 8
and filled them up with water in different levels and dipped their finger in them.
Frequency, you could hear frequency music coming from one side of my property.
And then I'm on the porch at this point with my dog. She's on the yard, and then it stops on the left-hand side in the woods and picks up on the right-hand side. I say fuck this. We're inside at this point. I shut and lock the front door.
As soon as you lock it, remember?
I go to the back door. I lock it, and then I turn off the outside light. And whenever I flipped off my outside light, the power in my house,
all the lights went out.
Except I have two Pokemon neon lights on my computer desk, and
we have my stove. I noticed that my stove. Lights are on, so I know I have power, but my lights are off, and that's strange. It doesn't occur to me because we go and take ourselves out of the bedroom.
The lights shut off. They just shut off like the power.
I know, that's what I'm saying, but it occurred to us that we still had power. Remember, because I said the Pokemon lights are still on this weird. Look at the stove.
So we go into the bedroom.
Shut the door.
She's on the phone with my older
sister.
The
knock.
I'm not there yet. She's on the phone with my older sister. I'm on the phone with my older sister. I'm telling her to come get me right now. This is not a drill. I'm texting her. I'm calling her. You fucking come get me right now. My older sister hangs up and texts her and says, hey, all I hear is humming on your phone.
And so
we lock the bedroom door.
And then you hear, like, it wasn't like it was like.
So now we're in the bathroom.
With the door locked. And I just had, first of all, it was terrifying. But it didn't occur to me when we went into the bedroom we had to flip the light switch up. And it didn't occur to me when we went in the bathroom that we had to flip the light switch up. And then finally we're sitting together. I tell her to hold my hand. And we're just kind of locked into this deep meditation where we're telling, like, we're speaking affirmations, positive affirmations. And we finally get the courage and we're like, whatever's here, like, if it is not good, it has no power over us. And we're like, this is okay. Let's go out into the... So we come out into the kitchen and then she flips on the light switch for the kitchen. And I'm like, wait a minute. And I walk through the house from the living room to the hall to my kid's bathroom.
And all the light switches were
all the light switches were down. So it wasn't like the light switches were up, boop, power off. It was like the second that she flipped the switch over here, they all went down.
Yeah,
I don't know how to explain it. I know it sounds crazy. I don't really care at this point who doesn't believe, because I know there are people who will. I'm going to figure out how to stitch that video, or it'll be my next video. I don't know what to say. I've been very open to all of what is going on. I don't know if I know what we heard. I know what we saw. I know what we experienced. I cannot discern because we just had so much energy of just like an experience that you don't normally experience happening to us, that I can't discern, like, was this a bad energy, or were we just spooked because we're out in the woods in the dark and we know we're not alone. We know what we heard. It was like music, but frequency music. I thought that I was crazy. I've been really into this stuff. She's not into this stuff. We know what we saw. We know what we heard. We know what happened to us. If anybody else has had an experience like this, if anybody can relate, if anybody can help us, if there's anybody just that believes, please reach out. Thank you.
All right, how do I
Okay, so this is from Gangland Gazette 0, and it's showing the different aliens. One's a gray alien, signature silhouette, eyes, skin, communication, purported habitat, purported diet, behavior, locomotion, origins in popular culture, recurring traits, yada yada. So that's where I'm going to tell everyone who's listening to the show, if you would like to come check out what we're seeing, you can do that on YouTube under We Are Paradox Media.
"64 new
Tall
UFO
white
files were
man.
released by the Pentagon today. Let's talk about them. There's a video from 2022, which does not have a location listed, showing multiple spherical objects going in and out of the water near a submarine. There's a declassified video appearing to show the moment a fighter jet shot down an unidentified object over a lake in Canada in 2023. This was actually a high-profile incident that came after a Chinese spy balloon traveled across the U.S., leading to heightened fears of UAPs. But later reports indicated that this object might have just been a balloon operated by a hobbyist group. Now, the most striking document included in today's batch of UFO files is a first-hand account from a senior intelligence officer who is currently serving, detailing his experience investigating UFO sightings in late 2025.
All right, so
You're 64 new. You're
Sorry, guys. I was trying to do this
This
Zoom
morning-
thing.
all right, so yes,
Your document. 64 UFO files were released by the Pentagon today. Let's talk about them. There's a video from 2022, which does not have a location.
See if we can go here.
Might have just been a balloon operated by a hobbyist group. Now, the most
All right. I'm just going to leave it alone. Probably too late for
object
that.
going in and out of the water near a submarine. There's a declassified video appearing to show the moment a fighter jet shot down an unidentified object over a lake in Canada in 2023. This was actually a high-profile incident that came after a Chinese spy balloon traveled across the U.S., leading to heightened fears of UAPs. But later reports indicated that this object might have just been a balloon operated by a hobbyist group. Now, the most striking document included in today's batch of UFO files is a first-hand account from a senior intelligence officer who is currently serving, detailing his experience investigating UFO sightings in late 2025 on board a military helicopter. The officer wrote that he and the crew had a series of close UAP encounters lasting over an hour as they investigated previous sightings. This is a direct quote. "In the distance, we saw countless orange orbs swarming in all directions against the backdrop of the mountain. The display lasted several minutes before fading. The pilots and I, using the naked eye, observed two large orbs flare up side by side, close to the helicopter, stationary and just above the rotor disc to our right. They were oval-shaped, orange with a white or yellow center, and emitted light in all directions." The officer said that he and the crew were virtually speechless after these observations. All in all, today's batch included 6 PDF files, 7 audio files, and 51 video files, comprised of grainy infrared
Jeez.
footage captured by military cameras and sensors. You can view them all on the Pentagon's UFO website, and we'll keep you updated right here when the next batch drops.
Your documentary alleges an 80-year global cover-up concealing the existence
So this is new UFO files revealed. Video, UFO shot down over Michigan Lake.
of alien life and, of course, its technology. The Pentagon has not drawn any conclusions as to whether these videos indicate non-human life. But what do you think? Do you think these are actual alien videos that have been released that we're watching?
Look, all my sources inside of government, the military, and the intelligence community very clearly have ruled out UAP being made by humans. There's no reason to believe this is human-made technology.
No way, Jose.
Certainly, if one of our adversaries, a foreign nation, had leapfrogged us by 100 years technologically and made these things, that's the biggest story in the history of the world on its own. If somebody within the U.S. has leapfrogged the rest of humanity by 100 years and figured out how to crack this technology, and the U.S. government is unaware of it, that also is the biggest story in the history of the world. And if it turns out definitively all of this is, controlled by non-human intelligent life, that's the biggest story in the history of the world. Any way you cut it, what's unfolding, in real time before our eyes is the biggest story in the history of humanity.
Yeah, and many people out there will agree with you, including me, really. So there will be a third drop in the near future. What other files are you hoping to see?
My understanding is that this is going to be a rolling disclosure process, and there's likely going to be more declassified evidence every few weeks, if not every month. What's actually unfolding right now is the White House is trying to get this evidence out of the various federal agencies and the branches of the military and defense contractors. And as they get access to evidence, they can then evaluate it and decide what can be declassified and what still needs to remain classified. But there's certainly a battle waging behind the scenes.
All right, so yesterday, May 22nd at 8 a.m., the U.S. government released a second set of UFO files. I've already posted several videos about it, but I'm going to show you a clip I haven't posted here yet, and it's one of the better pieces of footage from the files. To sum it up quickly, it shows some weird-looking unknown object. I can't even explain what shape it is. I don't know, but it turns and disappears right at the end. Take a look at this clip. As like I said, this is definitely one of the better pieces of footage from the files. There's a lot of what looks like birds, airplanes, balloons. There are definitely some great clips. Once again, a lot of white dots moving around, but this is one of the actual pieces of footage that isn't just a white dot. It's clearly some strange shape in the way it just turns and then disappears. I don't know what it is, but it is not technology we have, or if it is technology we have, it is not technology we should have. Let me know what y'all think about this clip in the comments. Thanks for stopping by.
This morning, the GMA exclusive, more than 50 videos and other documents detailing strange objects in the sky, many of which the military can't explain, released in the second batch of the Pentagon's so-called UFO files. Inside never-before-seen video like this from 2024, the Coast Guard picking up this object as it flew near a plane over the southeastern U.S., and this taken by the U.S. military over Syria in 2021, following an unidentified object before it suddenly speeds off. The service member who submitted the video labeling it instant acceleration. Others seen flying in apparent formation. All part of over 200 files released so far detailing what the military officially calls unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, better known as UFOs, long an object of public fascination.
They want to find out about the UFOs and anything having to do with UFO or related material.
The files made public on order of President Trump, who earlier this month touted complete and maximum transparency, leaving it up to the public to, quote, decide for themselves what the hell is going on. In the newly released records, this video from 2020, taken in an undisclosed area under U.S. Central Command, appearing to show a sphere flying over a population center, the pilot getting a closer look before it eventually flew higher off into the sky. And this account from a senior U.S. intelligence officer just last year, describing seeing two large orbs flare up alongside their helicopter while on a mission, saying they were orange with a white or yellow center and emitted light in all directions. Fighter jets then scrambled to identify the objects, but couldn't, the officer recounts, then writing, the same orbs we had encountered were now chasing the fighters. We were virtually speechless after these observations. Jay O'Brien, ABC News, Washington.
The Pentagon released a second batch of files related to UFOs. The drop consists of more than 50 videos of potential extraterrestrial encounters that were captured by military cameras and sensors. President Trump signed an executive order for those files to be made public earlier this year.
The Pentagon just released another batch of so-called UFO files. We've been going through them. I want to show you a little bit of what we found so far. This is one of the most interesting videos inside this second dump of files. And it involves an incident in Syria in 2021, and it involves this object. And look at the way that it starts to raise up there, starts to instantaneously take off. That, the government says, and all of these videos cannot be explained. They call it unresolved. There are more things just like that. I want to show you this. Come on in here. So this is kind of a darker orb that it's been slowed down in the video that is navigating through these clouds. And again, the military provides no explanation for this.
And they say that this is again unresolved. The same year, because that's from 2020, they shoot this. This is video of another dark orb. It's hard to see. It's there in the corner of the screen. It's over a population center just a month before that closer up shot of the orb. Now, all of this has been released on the orders of President Trump, who declassified these so-called UFO files, and they're being put up on a website, war.gov/UFO. And the government says, the Trump administration says, that that website has gotten upwards of 1 billion views since it went live earlier this month with just the first batch of these so-called UFO files. Now, there's a second batch. There's one more thing I want to show you here. It's not video, but there's also documents in these files, and it's this account from what's described as a senior U.S. intelligence officer. It says, in late 2025, this officer was on a mission in which they saw what's described as countless orange orbs. This senior U.S. intelligence officer says that they are, quote, oval-shaped orange with a white or yellow center in emitted light in all directions. They then go on to say that fighter jets were scrambled to track down these objects. Ultimately, they couldn't. And finally, when this team out on this mission lands in their helicopter, this individual says they were speechless when they tried to recount what they saw. Again, the government says that they have found no evidence after extensive investigations that any of these are tied to extraterrestrial activity, but they also say that, again, they cannot be explained.
Nope. What the heck is this right here? Okay, so we've heard stories from people like under Denver airport, other places like that. How large they are, how you can't say the name of our brother Jesus Christ around them, because perhaps the aliens are demons. I don't know. But with AI going around, it's so hard to watch this stuff and think that this is in fact real. But let's give it a try anyways.
We have too long left this as a national security or defense question. And really, answering it is a science question. And that a serious effort to figure out what UAPs are, what we understand about UAPs, should be a scientific-led endeavor.
And this video is by PBS News.
Not a defense-led one. And that this is, to me, I think one of the most interesting and long-standing questions, you know, dating back to the first time that humans ever looked up at the night sky. I mean, to me, this question of are we alone is one of the three great questions of humanity, along with what happens after death and is there a God? And one of the most interesting questions that I have after studying this topic for a long time now is, you know, just how unrelated are those three questions?
Right. Leslie, let's just say that we do get the proof that you are talking about. Do you think our society could handle the revelation that there was non-human intelligence and we'd brushed up against it?
I mean, ultimately, I think yes, just based on polls that have been taken, you know, where a large portion of the population say they already believe that this is true. But again, I really don't know. I think it depends a lot on how it's presented and what is presented. And it's definitely going to be, I mean, there's some people that feel that people could really freak out and what they call ontological shock, you know, your worldview changes and then maybe the stock market's going to crash and there'll be a lot of impacts on society. But I really don't know. I think that if indeed we do have evidence that we are not alone, I think that regardless of the impact that it might have, I don't think that's a legitimate reason for holding that information secret. It's something that everybody on the planet is entitled to know. Holding the technology secret is understandable, but just the basic fact. But you know, we'd have to show evidence of that.
Right.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News.
Thanks, PBS.
The U.S. government released the second set of UFO files this morning at 8 a.m. It's about 8:15 now, so they've only been out for about 15 minutes, but I've already found something really interesting I want to show you here in a moment. It is maybe the first video I've seen of a UFO actually doing that transmedium travel they talk about, going from the air to underwater seamlessly without making a splash, without slowing down.
I have video of, first we thought it was one UFO. We're thinking Tic Tac, but is it or is it called something else? We don't know. First one appeared, and then there was two, and then number two disappeared, and then number one just kept putzing along through the sky until you could hear a jet flying toward the area, and as soon as it got probably, I want to say maybe football fields, maybe 3 football fields away from this UFO, it blinked out of existence. And I don't think it actually did. I think it was just a cloak, because as the jet went forward and turned back around and went the other way, it blinked back in and just kept heading in the direction that it was. But yeah, as soon as I get this video uploaded the way I need it to, I don't know, every time I try to share it or anything, you can't see them. When I watch it on my phone, I can see them. Why can't other people see them? But yeah, it's crazy. They're out there.
Take a look at this clip right here.
So it's flying and maneuvering and hitting tops of waves and in and out of the water. Yeah. That is not a boat. That is not a bird.
Now, I know this video isn't that big aha UFO floating over the White House lawn that we all want. I want it, you want it, but it's still something. So it's put out by our own government. It's interesting. We need to evaluate it and take a look at everything. All right, so like I said, there's tons of videos left to sort through today, so stay tuned. I will be definitely posting more as more rolls out. There is a lot of data to go.
The Pentagon has released a second batch of declassified UFO files. One newly released video shows an F-16 operated by the U.S. Air Force Air National Guard shooting something down over Lake Huron in 2023, according to the Pentagon. The government calls these UAPs, or unidentified anomalous phenomena.
It is time for President Trump to tell the world the truth about UAP and UFOs. And if any...
Okay, and, Trumpers would be like, but he did. Remember, they just shared a bunch of the files? A lot of these are to get people off the trail of the other files that we want to be checking out. But this is May 2026.
Anybody's can and will do it, it would be him.
One of the most unconventional people in the entire UFO disclosure ecosystem covered.
Yeah, and seriously, like, Trump, even though I can't stand him, I think he's hurting us so much. And is it because he has knowledge of all this stuff, and he's like, whatever, let's do it. Let's do it. Hardcore, full-fledged, what are they going to do about it? He has gotten away with so much stuff that no president ever has ever tried to get away with. And he's still there. He's still doing it, and he has not been prosecuted. So, like you said, if anyone were to be able to release what's going on here, it would be him. Why not? He's done everything else under the sun.
In tattoos, a former artist, a former martial artist, but he's at the center of it all. This documentary, Sleeping Dog, that I just watched, this documentary provoked the release today of 2 of the videos that were first seen in the documentary, meaning the rest of it's probably real too. Jeremy Corbell, it's great to have you on. If this is real disclosure, what are we getting from the War Department here? What is this?
Right. So is this real disclosure? We've had people testify with their hand up to God and country that not just UFOs are real, that we have been reverse engineering non-human intelligence craft, that we have bodies, alien bodies. I don't know how else to say it. They call it biologics, just to keep it kind of more open. At least we have the pilots that are non-human of this craft. And if that is true, if what people risk to be able to say to the American public and to Congress under oath that this is all true, like David Grush, Dylan Borland, Matthew Brown, etc., right? Then what we need to know now.
And I believe this is Jeremy Corbell. Pretty sure, but I'm bad with names. I'll have to Google it.
Is what are the real questions? What are we being shown? We're being shown parts, as you said, and that this is fact, that in the documentary Sleeping Dog, we did a little provocation. We showed a little bit of some tiny things that, as journalist George Knapp and I, will be putting out to the public.
Well, this UFO story just got way bigger because now both Republicans.
Okay, so this one is marked May 22nd. Oh, we're on the 24th now. We're 5 minutes for me into 5/24/26, but yeah, so this was a couple days ago.
And Democrats are publicly praising the release of declassified UFO and UAP files from the Trump administration. I mean, think about that just for a second. In today's political climate, almost nobody agrees on anything. Yet lawmakers on both sides are suddenly united on government transparency involving UFOs, military footage, and unexplained aerial phenomena. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The released files reportedly include Apollo mission transcripts, unexplained lights seen during space missions, and never before seen military material. But wait, there's actually more to this key part. The government is still not saying aliens are real. They're saying that they're unexplained phenomena, and the public deserves to see all this. And honestly, that's why people are glued to this story right now, because once government admits there are things they can't fully
the boogosphere, it isn't.
Why does it have to be the government? Why can't it be your neighbor?
An extraterrestrial object. We've done the analysis on it. It is electrogravitic anti-gravity. It is not a hoax. There are now 10 different videos from 10 different spheres flying in this region in South America. It has interesting inscriptions, which have been analyzed to be a type of Proto-Sanskrit, a very unusual type of circle.
Okay, and there's people in the comments saying distraction, lies, lies, lies. Yes, this is a distraction, but this stuff is real. I'm serious, dude. Like, not only have I seen Tic Tacs, I've seen the freaking orb ones, not the boogosphere ones, but the ones that look like they have liquid fire in them. I've seen those twice. The Tic Tac ones once. In pictures, like I could not see with my eye what was in the sky, but I've always been obsessed with the sky since even before my mom passed away. She asked me months before she passed, "What do you want me to bring you back from Colorado?" which is where I'm at now. And I told her I wanted a rainbow. She couldn't bring me a real one, so she brought me a postcard with a rainbow on it, which I still have, in a little photo album I've had since I was preteen. Man, I've got to be like 8 or 9 when I got this, and I still have it. But yeah, for some reason, always obsessed with the sky. But this stuff is real. Just because it is being used at this point as a distraction doesn't make it not real.
Pattern on the top of it. And if you look at these holes around the
Also, sorry, I have to interrupt again. And even if they are using it as a distraction and it is real, what better time to do it? Because people don't believe it is real, as this comment said right here. Expose the truth at certain times and people will find it fake. This isn't real because this is a distraction from this. You're gaslighting me with truth.
equator, the center, is one seamless sphere, but inside these holes is a type of resin that has fiber optics microscopically in them. And we took some of this resin and tested it. You'll see that the resin done at the University of Georgia, the top carbon-14 dating facility, is 12,560 years old. So this sphere is 12,560 years old. It's the end of the last ice age when a comet or an asteroid hit. It's the flood stories of ancient times. So either a very advanced extraterrestrial civilization assisted at that time or was already here, or people working with those civilizations made this. You can see the list of elements in there. Interestingly, are a number of elements that were not even discovered until the late 1800s or early 20th century that have a high electromagnetic conducting purpose today, but in unusual quantities. The actual alloy itself, that is the skin of this 1 foot diameter sphere, is in fact no known alloy that currently exists in any aerospace or industrial application. It matches none of them in its complete decomposition analysis. X-rays and CAT scans, I'm going to show you these lit up areas. There are fiber optics that light up within this. Here is a very unusual structure from the CAT scan. They used a tin filter to get some of the colorization and elements. Interestingly, this structure no longer exists in it. This was taken not long after it landed. After it had gotten too close to a power line, it shorted out and landed. That's how we have it. And a man picked it up. But what's fascinating about this is that when I saw it, I immediately thought this is some type of superconducting low temperature plasma. And that can recruit energy from what's called the quantum vacuum or 0 point field, provide the energy to put it in rotation and spin and have it levitate. Now, when this landed, it weighed about 2 kilos. Now it weighs 10. So there was a gain in mass of a 4 or 5 fold. Why? When you create a certain voltage in rotation, you can get what's called a mass cancellation effect. If it gets massless, if it goes to 0 mass, it vanishes and teleports or goes out of this dimension and can, through quantum entanglement, appear in here and then here. This structure, next slide, here's the interior of it now. Where's that structure? Well, it's like dissipating a cloud. I think it was an energy form that dissipated. And here's a video of that micro CT scan as it's going through the surface. And you're going to see it as it passes through, and it's a big void. Yeah, it's like a quantum vacuum void. There are some filaments and material in there. My theory is that whatever containment field and structure in there that was an electromagnetic and low temperature plasma and superconducting field dissipated in the ensuing year. One of the conclusions I have come to with these Boogosphere activations, of which there have been a number, there are remote sensing devices that are 12,500 years old that are picking up some sort of either cosmic energy or electromagnetic or magnetic field disturbance around the Earth. It's a bit ominous. These tests that we have done prove that there's no bolts, screws, seams, all the traditional manufacturing things you see in a man-made device does not exist. So it is almost certainly of non-human origin. It's very ancient.
Let's go over this video from the latest UAP drop. So as you can see, it's above the ocean, going very quickly. And there seems to be some light refraction going on, maybe from the sun hitting its metallic body. The coolest thing is this wobble. Look at this. You see this thing going back and forth, kind of like pendulum style. Back and forth. What's that about? Oh, I like this one. Also, quickly, we got to debunk one of the files. There was this trippy spirit-looking thing, and it's actually a stormtrooper balloon. So, Luke, that's pretty funny, though. The government's filming stormtrooper balloons. What the hell is that? Some stressed-out mom bought that stormtrooper balloon, and then it got lost to the wind, and now it's in the UFO files. Brayden, get in the car! Ah, shit! One time I shot a UFO on the set of Goldfinger. Yes, I'd like to shop for some very small shorts. See, it's the summertime. And these grapes aren't going to smuggle themselves here, boy. What? Okay.
Today, the Pentagon and the Trump administration just released some new declassified information.
Let's go over this video from the latest UAP drop.
Today, the Pentagon and the Trump administration just released some new declassified information talking about extraterrestrial entities, where it shows a humanoid entity hovering over the Sequoia National Park in 2015. Now, when you look at the footage of the classification, it shows you a plasmoid, which is basically a direct emulation of an Ethereum. So this is basically correlated to the movie Silver Surfer because the entity that they're showing you in the video looks like a direct emulation of the Silver Surfer. So that's why, you know, as far as the movies is nothing but modern day hieroglyphics. Now, based on my life.
And you know, you might not know, but the movie industry is and has been created, established by the powers that be. Even from the beginning, movies and different things like that have been put out there for propaganda, also to subject us with propaganda to things that we are to see in the future. And they've been doing this UFO stuff on the air for quite some time, since the 90s when the X-Files came out, and before then when the Twilight Zone was sharing stuff, and you know, Spaceball, Star Trek, Star Wars, whatever, all these different things about space and different things like that. So perhaps we wouldn't lose our heads as much as we would had we not been able to perceive this through movies and shows, etc.
Logical assertions, this UAP footage is serving as a warning because remember in the Fantastic Four movie, you had the Silver Surfer that showed up in Times Square and gave a warning to humanity. Because one thing you got to understand about the Fantastic Four is the embodiment of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, which is also equated to the four basic elements, which is earth, air, water, and fire, that collaborates with ether, which is the dodecahedron, which represents Silver Surfer. So Silver Surfer collaborates with the Fantastic Four, which represents chaos.
Your planet is now marked for death. Your world will be consumed by the Devourer. There is nothing you can do to stop him, for he is a universal force, as essential as the stars.
But with all that shit being said, you're looking at full spectrum, full disclosure. Because when the Iceman melts, that's when the wave gods appear. I'm gonna say it again. Because when the Iceman melts, that's when the wave gods appear. So Mami Wata is gonna make America wavy again. Pay attention to the signs and symbols and pay attention to the algorithm, because we are in the Aquarian age, ladies and gentlemen.
So with the US government saying that aliens are real and dropping UFO content, I really feel like we should get a refresher on some things that happened way in the past, like past day Iraq Sumerian text that's in the British Museum. And on these Sumerian tablets, they describe a race of entities, Anunnaki, where they lived amongst humans and messed with human DNA to basically make us short-term workers. So basically, from my understanding of the text, it looks like, you know, human beings were capable of things that people would normally say that is magic or superhuman abilities, but then we're basically just shut off. The technology is still there in our body, which we call junk DNA. And it's quite interesting, really. But one of these things that we can see
Sometimes
in our
junk is
bodies
treasure.
already is that there was foul play with our telomeres and making them short intentionally so that way we wouldn't live long enough to advance above them. And basically, pretty much, we have like a short lifespan of 120 years, but people have lived a very long lifespans before, thousands of years. Astral projection and telepathy, the ability to just communicate something without words, like I'm doing now, just straight direct experience into your conscious mind.
Well, we are getting word now that the president is very close to taking serious action. The author of the book, Catastrophic Disclosure, told me today that President Trump, at least his sources tell him that President Trump is set to sign another executive order related to the UFO UAP research. And it would open the door for people to come forward. 3 things in this executive order we're being told. It would release all the scientists involved in this program of their NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. It would release them. That means they could come forward freely without penalty. There is possible immunity for anyone that may have been committed a crime or accused of a crime or even around a crime. Immunity in this to let them, of course, come forward. And thirdly, this executive order would make it a crime not to give up the documents. And it would be a crime forcing people to give up these documents. All a great move on behalf of President Trump. We expect that executive order in days, is what the sources are telling Kent Heckenlively, who is, of course, the author of Catastrophic Disclosure. This is a brand new book that is out. It gets into a very journalistic view, by the way, of the UFO UAP phenomenon, and it looks very seriously at the possibility the deep state is involved in the cover-up. There could be a psyop, but there's also some real evidence in here that things could be very real, too. I want to bring in the author of Catastrophic Disclosure, Kent Heckenlively, to the program. Kent, welcome back.
Thanks so much.
All right, your sources, as you tell it to me, this executive order, this is a big deal. Why in your mind? And look, I will say this, to your credit, inside your book, you basically call for some of these things, Kent. Why is this a big deal?
Yeah, there's a direct line from the end of my book, a memorandum that was supposedly given to Trump in the beginning of the second Trump administration, calling for these things. Now, I heard from my sources who called me saying that they'd been contacted directly by the White House, saying that this executive order is imminent within the next week or two. I think this also goes along with the outreach that we've heard to pastors. And so all of this seems to be very consistent. And, you know, today's release was actually a little bit earlier. As I understood it, this release was supposed to come at the end of the day, and they did it this morning. So I think the Trump administration is moving very quickly to get disclosure out there. And to Trump's credit, I think he's done more in these 2 releases than have been done in the past 70 years.
All right. I want to make it clear to everybody out there, you are a corruption guy. You're not a UFO guy. In fact, you're not even really popular with the whole UFO crowd because you raise questions into everything. Is there corruption going on here, Kent?
Yeah, I think it is beyond doubt that corruption is going on. Here's what I'll point to. In the first release of documents was one document that had been alleged for years by the UFO community, the so-called Twining Memo, which was written at the end of 1947 from the Chief of Air Force Intelligence to the Chief of the Air Force, listing these craft and their capabilities. You could take that information and put it on today's news, and it would be the same thing.
Nope. Okay, so here's a picture. I found this photo in my grandfather's nightstand while cleaning out his house. He was a lifelong military man stationed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Could be AI. If you want to see for yourself, check us out on YouTube. So they're showing the one that looks like the similar to the ship that was when they brought it. It looks similar to the ship that Superman was sent over there. Everybody's saying this is alien. But isn't this one a picture of it getting blown up? I don't know. Okay, so we might have to get into another area.
We are not. Be out there.
There is. It's out there. Alright. Yeah. Shut you down, buddy. The UFO files. I think that's where we went. Yeah, it was alright, but let's do something else. Whoa. That is not a frisbee. It's a strange object caught on camera. Real UFO or fake? What do you think? I don't know. We need to check something else out.
Listen to me. I am compelled to tell this story, for my story is 100% true, and I need you to listen.
Okay.
2018, I went to prison. While I was in prison, my ex was still on the street. In Seattle, the police will sweep the homeless off the street periodically throughout the year. They'll go to the densest, most populated place where homeless are, and they'll take them off the street and put them in jail. While in jail, a lot of these homeless were approached by some unknown entity, unknown people, and presented with a thick packet. All they had to do was sign on the dotted line, and they would get something called permanent housing. Now, prior to this, before my girl got swept up and put into jail, she was telling me while I was in prison that they were making all these apartment complexes all over the city. This was in 2016 to 2018, right before COVID and the fentanyl epidemic had hit the streets. Now, my girl signed, and so did a lot of these other homeless. So when they were let out of prison, they were given apartments in these complexes that had been just popped up overnight, basically. At first, everybody was happy. The conversations over the phone were great. My girl was happy to be off the street. So was everybody else. But as the months went on, my girl was telling me some crazy shit was happening inside these apartment complexes. Now, when you take homeless off the street and give them no practical skills and they have no house training, they will take the streets with them and trap out wherever they're at. So these homeless people were getting put in these buildings under the guise of harm reduction. They were reducing harm is what the program said. But in fact, as the months went on, and I was talking to my girl just about every day, people started dying from overdoses of weird illnesses. The old people that were basically crippled and in the first floor of these apartment complexes, they were getting signed up for life insurance. When they died, who got their life insurance? Now, there was a whistleblower that worked at one of these places. He was just a regular dude, just a regular good-hearted dude, and he seen that some weird shit was going on. Now, he dug into who founded these buildings, who paid for it. It was the IMF, the International Money Fund. If you don't know who they are, you need to do your homework, because they're the ones, when you hear that America has a trillion-dollar debt, they're the ones who handle those transactions in between countries. They're also have people that sit on their board like the Rothschilds, who play both sides of conflicts and wars and pay off this nation, buys it, sells them weapons, and then pays off the opposite nation and sells them weapons. Okay, they're also, the IMF is also who these huge like the World Health Organization, FEMA, funnel their money into, so that the money goes to wherever they say the money needs to go. All right, it's a huge world organization. Why would they start making these huge apartment complexes right before the pandemic and right before the fentanyl epidemic really hit the streets? It's almost as if they knew this crisis was going to happen, and then these homeless that were taken off the street and put into these places were literally dying. This was eugenics all over again. This was population control of the new age. This is all real. It's 100% fact. But the thing is, out of 5 years, my girl living in this apartment complex, she is one of the only ones to still be alive out of a 6-story huge apartment complex. Everyone else is dying, and she is hanging on by a thread to her sanity. Now listen, while I was in prison, she would tell me, I'm hearing voices and I'm seeing things. She never had this problem on the street. She was a straight street gangster, bro. She slept, she ate, and she never did too many drugs to be out of her wits. She was a beast, right? But all of a sudden, her and other people that are in the apartment complexes are reporting hearing voices and seeing shit and weird things coming through the vents. Now, when you look at these apartment complexes, they are built weirdly. Their architecture has hollow walls. Let's say one room's 8 feet, 8 feet, and 8 feet, right? But on the outside, the room's 16 feet. You go inside the room, it's still 8 feet. So there's walls behind walls. That's one thing. Also, she took this magnetizer thing because she was finding her and a lot of other people would pace up and down certain spots of the apartment, like they were on some kind of a magnetic line. When she Google mapped the top of these buildings, normal buildings, they have like whatchamacallit, HVAC, an electrical system, some ventilation, shit like that. But when she looked on Google Maps, there was all these big-ass, weird-ass blocks on top of it. Now, this whistleblower, going back to him, this nice guy that truly cared about these tenants and was starting to see weird shit go on, he did the investigation to see where the money came from to pay for these places. He found that really thick fucking contract that everybody remembers seeing in jail but couldn't get a hold of when they were in the actual apartment complex and wanted to see what the fuck they had just signed up for. He found in this fucking contract that these guys had signed on to chemical manipulation, brainwave scanning technology, voice to skull, and some other shit in huge legalese buried language. I shit you not. Nobody could get a copy of this. Nobody. And the copy that he had, he couldn't get it off of a computer. It was word of mouth. So what he did was make a YouTube video, and he whistleblew. And I know a lot of people in Seattle must have seen it because it was getting thousands of views. And he had told the people in the apartment complex, look at this. Tell other people from these other housing apartment complexes to watch this shit. And they did. But this non-drug user, guess what happened to him? Yeah, he was found unalive from a drug overdose, and he didn't do drugs. He was a big proponent of that, of not doing drugs, right? But he's found with a drug overdose. Sounds like he was unalive for knowing some shit and blowing the whistle. So I get out of prison and get this. I go to find this shit. You can't find the video. What was my girl lying to me? Was her friends lying to me about this video? No. And we had conversations about it because I started living in this place. This place was weird. I had never heard voices in my head before. I had never seen shit. I shit you not, I seen an alien. Everybody knew about this alien. I'll tell you about the alien later. But there was things going on. The food wasn't right. We all know the food's not right, but this food really wasn't right. The water was not right. There was weird gas pipes that were capped that came out of the walls that nobody could tell anybody about. The management was circulated on like a 3 to 6 month loop, so there was never a steady, stable person at the top of the food chain that could provide answers. And the counselors that were there were cover-up artists. All they did was push the problem to the side when people complained about this shit, and then the people ended up dying. After a year of living in this crazy shit, I tried to get other people that had seen this video. They were dead. They were gone. This is word of mouth. This is on my heart. True. I put this on everything, and I need to get this story out. I'm going to do a deep dive of this one time when I go back to Seattle.
Did you know that since the 1990s, there have been claims about an underground pyramid known as the Dark Pyramid that supposedly exists underneath a military base in Alaska, and it's supposedly linked to secret government experiments, but
Okay, so underneath this video it says, my dad worked beneath a base in Alaska, and before he passed, he hinted that there were underground levels that officially didn't exist. Years later, a stranger walked into the bar where I worked. I just got out. This is Kaylee's submission to Spooky Scary Story Time. Because of the nature of this story, I just want to remind everyone that these stories can come from anyone, and I can't claim validity of any of these stories. This series is purely listener submitted, and it's up to you to decide what you believe.
archaeologists have sworn that there is zero proof that this place actually exists and that any claims coming out about it are purely misinformation. So that's my disclaimer, but I thought it was an interesting introduction to a story I received for Spooky Scary Story Time from someone named Kaylee, who says she grew up in Alaska and her dad was a government contractor who worked underneath a base in Fairbanks. And the base is very real. I can verify that much. The rest of the story, I cannot. Keep in mind, Spooky Scary Story Time is a series of listener-submitted stories that can come from anyone. And while all the people who submit their stories claim that these stories are true, I can't verify. So let's just keep in mind that this is for entertainment only. Kaylee says as she grew up, her dad often made comments about these underground levels at the base where he worked, and she never really thought anything of them other than they were just generally spooky until years later when she was working at a bar and a man walked in who made comments, had her questioning everything her dad told her. So we'll start at the beginning. Initially, Kaylee's dad repaired electrical systems for remote, dense sites. That's what he told everyone his job was. Family lived outside of Anchorage for a while and then moved closer to Fairbanks, but there were long periods while her dad was working this job that he would disappear for long stretches at a time. No phone calls and no explanations, and when he would return, he would be exhausted. Not normal tired, but like completely drained. He would jump at slight noises. He was unable to sleep unless there were blackout curtains taped up on all the windows, and he hated tunnels, like genuinely panicked around them. Kaylee says when she was 11, she remembers they were driving near a construction site into a parking garage that was underground, and when her father saw the ramp leading off the street level down, he pulled the truck over and started having a panic attack, and he made a comment to her about there being places underneath this country that people were never supposed to dig. The panic attack in this comment scared Kaylee almost to the point of tears, and she remembers her mother screaming at her father about saying things like this in front of her daughter. Dad got back in the truck, apologized to Kaylee, and she said this was generally just the pattern with him. He would say things that sounded insane and then shut down and refuse to elaborate. The older she got, the more she realized that there were inconsistencies with his job. For instance, he never wore uniforms with any type of logo on them, and his ID badge was his name with a simple black barcode. He returned from 1 month-long work trip with 2 perfect surgical scars on identical parts of his forearms. They were perfectly straight lines, but he claimed that they were the result of an accident that he had had on the job. But the most strange habit that he had was his habit of checking vents. Everywhere they went, hotels, restaurants, movie theaters, he would stare at the air vents for way too long. One night,
That's crazy because, okay, so the one and only UFO conference I went to was in San Francisco, 2018. My friend Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio was going to be there. He's from Canada. And so I was like, I want to go there and meet everyone. He wasn't the only one. Like, a lot of people, like Gogo Teresa and Eric and other people from the group were there. And I kept looking at the vent. I just felt like something was watching me from the vent, and I was very paranoid about it.
Shortly before his death, when Kaylee was a little bit older, her dad was letting loose a little bit. He had had a little bit too much to drink, and he told her There were certain places in Alaska that weren't on paper. And she's like, you mean like bunkers? He stared at her dead serious and he says, no, way further down. He said that there are levels that go miles down, and the public that knows about them thinks that they're storage facilities or radar stations. But then he tells her something that genuinely terrified, and he said, the elevators that go miles down have armed guards inside of them. Outside the elevators, inside the elevators, and once you pass a certain depth, nobody's allowed to travel alone. And sometimes during routine maintenance shifts, they would hear what sounded like animals behind the walls. He said it wasn't machinery, it was scratching, it was breathing, it was movement. He told her, whatever is down there, they built walls around it instead of removing it. She said, well, what is it? And he completely shut down and refused to continue the conversation. He changed the subject. And the next morning, when he woke up, she asked him about it again, and he refused to talk about it. He pretended he had no idea what she was talking about. He was like, we never had that conversation. No matter how much she tried, she couldn't get him to elaborate, but she continued thinking about what he said. And after he passed, she started going down the rabbit hole, and that's how she found out about the Alaska Pyramid. So supposedly the conspiracy is that the government found it during the Cold War when they were doing experiments, but it's a massive black pyramid that apparently existed before modern civilization. People say that it emits frequencies, others say that it interferes with technology, and other people write it off entirely as internet conspiracy. You know, she can't find any verifiable proof that this place exists. It's just conspiracy. So she doesn't really think about it. She tries to put it out of her mind. She's like, I'll never really know, until years later. She's bartending near Anchorage. It's a slow night. It's a snowstorm outside. It's near closing time when this older guy walks in. He's like late 50s, and he's wearing this heavy gray jacket, and he looks completely exhausted. And it reminded her of how her dad used to look when he would come home from month-long work trips. She said, I can't explain it other than it looks like this person has not slept in months. Sat at the bar, ordered bourbon, and they get to talking about work. And he asks her why she's still open so late in the middle of a snowstorm. And she says, it's okay, we're getting close to close anyway, but at least I'm not stuck working underground somewhere, you know. Man completely freezes, and he's like, who told you about the underground? And she laughs, and she's like, oh, it's okay. My dad used to work as a contractor on a base in Fairbanks. Guy just stares at her, and it actually creeped her out. And he says, did your dad ever mention the medical wing? She says she felt sick because her dad had mentioned it to her only once when she was about 16. And he had mentioned that there was a sealed level underground. People in respirators worked, and if the alarms went off, the elevators sealed automatically. Nobody in, nobody out. And she tells this man what her dad had said. And she's like, do you know anything else about it? And he leans forward and he looks around, even though there's no one else in the bar. And he says, yeah, I just got out. Didn't say retired, didn't say got off a job, says got out like he's talking about a prison. He goes, out of where? And he says, the lower levels. Says, did your dad ever tell you that we're not allowed to wear watches down there because the time doesn't behave normally? He laughs, like he's not expecting her to believe him anyway. He says, yeah, there's sealed blast doors with no labels on them. And sometimes guys would come up after working 12 hours and they would be convinced that weeks had passed. He mentions the sounds, and he says, and you can hear them through the vents at night. He said immediate chills because this brought her back to the conversation that she had had with her own father. He goes, who is them? And he laughs again, and he says, I don't know, but they sound human when they're far away. But she almost dropped the glass that she was holding. And at this point, she just wanted this man to leave. She was genuinely creeped out, and she didn't want him to tell her anymore. But eventually he did pay. He got up after his one drink, and he was about to head out, and he turns around and he said, did your dad ever mention the armed guards in the elevators? She says, yeah, he did. And he goes, did he ever tell you why? He says, no. And he says, well, it wasn't to keep people out. He walks off into the night. Interaction was spooky, but again, what can she make of this? A couple days go by. She's at home. She's been off work for a couple of days. When her phone rings, she answers. It's her bar manager. Sounded weirdly tense. He goes, was there some weird guy in here the other night talking about a government base? He goes, oh, yeah, please don't. Doesn't mention the conversation that she had with him. And she's like, why, what's up? And he's like, well, there's two guys that just came in the bar and they were looking for him. Like police? And he's like, no, they were definitely some kind of military, parkas and clean cut, you know. All they asked was whether the man had discussed classified information with anybody from the bar. So her boss says, I need to know exactly what he said to you. And she says, he just mentioned the lower levels and some armed guards. Manager says, I was afraid you were going to say that. And she goes, why? And he says, well, they specifically asked if he had mentioned the lower levels. When the manager asked them for identification, they just told him that they were with the Department of Energy and left. Even stranger, weeks later, possibly coincidentally, Kaylee's apartment was broken into. And all that was rifled through was the boxes that she had of her dad's things. He said, I didn't have anything of his that would have been considered classified information anyway, but it was strange because nothing was missing. It was just like someone had broken into my apartment while I was at work, rifled through the things, looking for something, didn't find whatever they were looking for, and left without taking anything else. So, anyone have any thoughts as to what's actually going on down there? Again, keep in mind this is for entertainment purposes only. I cannot prove the validity of this story. Have a spooky scary story time that you think nobody would believe, or one that you've just been holding on to for a little bit too long, send it in. We would love to hear it.
You can ask the flowers I sit for hours, telling all the bluebirds.
Okay,
You
so
can ask the flowers. You can ask the flowers.
Well, I guess pause doesn't make it pause anymore. Okay, so if you're listening right now, this is a video of photos that were taken, and you know how most UFO photos look like Shiite because it could be the vibration or whatever coming off of the unit. It doesn't want its picture taken, whatever. So every picture of that and Bigfoot and whatever else is always blurry. But somebody's going through these pictures and clearing up the sound and other things on it to make it clear. This is crazy. But like I said, decipher for yourself. We got AI out there, so who knows what is real anymore.
On this episode, you can ask the flowers. I sit for hours, telling all the bluebirds, the billy birds, the little baby, so in love with you. You can ask the flowers. I sit for hours, telling all the bluebirds, the billy birds, the little baby, so in love with you. You can ask the flowers. I sit for hours, telling all the bluebirds, the bill and coo birds.
What if David Wilcock found the secret behind disclosure, and that's the reason why he's no longer with us, and the reason that maybe they deleted my account because I was talking about these things a little too much apparently. But yeah, TikTok deleted my account. But listen to what Mr. Wilcock has to say in this video. This is very important. Listen to the whole video. It explains a lot. And it explains exactly what's going on right now, and that's the reason that he's no longer with us.
I think I did this on your show before, but it's worth saying it again. I'd rather die once at the hand of an assassin than die every day in fear of assassination.
If you could get one thing disclosed right now,
fear sucks.
Beyond the shadow of a doubt, what topic, what specific area would that be?
Well, let me give a thoughtful instead of a sarcastic answer, because we could joke around all day.
We've done each other too much.
Yeah, I know. We've had parties at some of these things, and wild things have taken place.
Well, I left before the wild things took place.
Well, but you had a few drinks in you, though. And that, if you hadn't left, it could have gotten bad. We had some very interesting and amazing women showing up, and let's just leave it there.
Lizard women.
So you can reveal one thing. Not about this.
Okay, so the lead singer for Smashing Pumpkins mentioned that he had slept with a chick at a party, and as soon as they had done the deed, she morphed into a lizard person. To find out, he had seen a lizard person twice after such a deed, and it was the same one. And I'm thinking, because he wouldn't say on air, and this was with, oh my gosh, what's his name? I want to say Stewart, from New York, that one big broadcaster. Then he went to California, I think. What the heck is his name? Anyways, I think it was Courtney Love.
But you reveal one thing that you've been working on all your life. What would it be? If you could get that answer.
I would want the world to know about Ascension. I would want the world to know that we are very, very close. And all the people on the inside know this. This is the key of disclosure. We are very close to some sort of energetic shift the sun is going to do. Our new insider, William Tompkins, knows all about it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so another thing, I watch Stefan Burns. He is constantly checking out what's going on with the sun, the surface of the sun, super major solar flares, volcanic activity, etc., etc., etc. Things have changed quite a bit in recent months as far as the sun goes. We've had Aurora Borealis all the way down to Texas, probably even further down south. The sun is doing some crazy things. Pete Peterson knows all about it, he says.
Peterson knows all about it. Every insider at the highest level.
Concerned?
It depends on who you're talking to and where they are. But what everybody agrees on is that this is a massive consciousness shift. And therefore, if you look at the amount of validation that we see in the major world religions, including the Islamic Bible, the Quran, the Bible, obviously, it's all over the place in
Torah.
there. The Jewish Bible, the Torah, you betcha. I mean, it's in Buddhism, it's in Hinduism, it's everywhere. And yet, how can we be so ignorant about this? If
scripts are being revealed every day, and people are like, oh, well, it just came out of pot. It was buried with this certain person. Could be a king, could be a queen, could be some rich person in the community, could be put in a pauper's grave for security, but things from our history that have been erased, some people have taken to the grave, and they are being revealed.
If there is some sort of natural event that's going to take place that takes our certainty of being a spiritual being and makes it absolutely certain, where there's no veil left, where we are wide open to reality and our greater spiritual identity, I would want more people to know about that so they can prepare for it. Of course. Because these religious texts were intended to give you thousands of years of lead time to prepare for it. And what we're hearing is that our own military-industrial complex has very powerful ships now that can defeat the reptilians, 100%. And they're already doing that. We've created that here. And this is from several insiders now, the highest level stuff that I can give you. The Draco, the reptilians, have created these technologies, including these gigantic tankers. We're talking 2.5 mile long ships hovering in low Earth orbit, cloaked so you can't see them, but if you could, they'd be right there and they'd be gigantic, covering the sky.
What's in them?
Mind control technology that is preventing us from having this spiritual shift already. Our government, our military, it's not really the government, okay, but our military does a couple.
And that reminds me of the other day driving into town. There was a cloud that had a huge shadow. And I had said, that cloud has got to be humongous. If you looked up in the sky, you couldn't even see a cloud. What is that?
Let's call it the cabal, or, well, they're not all bad. Some of these guys, they now have the ability to shoot those tankers down. The problem they're having, George, is that it's not like a fader dial where you can kind of fade out the mind control.
Right.
It's either on or it's off, and they know this.
Yeah.
So they haven't shot the tankers down yet, because when they do, everybody kind of goes into a psychedelic trip.
Will they?
It's unavoidable. There have already been multiple experiments, I've heard this from several insiders, that have been done, in which they take ordinary folks and they put them into a room and they zap them with the energy that our sun is going to give off when we go through this change.
Yeah.
And the spiritual people become very blissed out. They start to get really telepathic. They can move things with their mind.
But the others?
People that are negative, materialistic, selfish, fearful, you start to create whatever you think.
Yeah.
So you're manifesting your own reality in real time. And if you go into a panic, if you go into paranoia, you're going to start having terrifying hallucinations. You're going to actually see things. And the more that you fear them, the more they're going to appear. And if it wasn't for these universal laws, they would have taken me out. I think they would have. They've tried and tried and tried. I have been given death threats directly from the Rothschilds 3 different times.
So I firmly believe that is why all these scientists have gone missing. That is why David Wilcock himself went missing, because he knew that we were on the verge of something. If you watch his final few podcasts, he talks about ascension. He talks about these people that are after him. But we are en route for the great solar flash. And I think that what he says is right. There are so many people out there that don't have the right mindset.
No, because we have been trained to be sheeple. A lot of us that were born as starseeds, or whatever the heck you want to call them, born with gifts we've used, sometimes unintentionally, sometimes against our own will, throughout our life, have been awakened, have been aware, have been trying to tell everybody what is going on and not understanding. Why can they not see what is right before their eyes? This could go to the cult members of a certain agenda that's out there, who don't even know they're cult members. But hey, you know, the Kool-Aid is pretty good, so if you drink the Kool-Aid, that could happen.
So when this event happens, people are just going to lose their minds. A great number of people, and that is the secret that they are keeping. They don't.
And the other thing is, people that, I mean, the grind that they have us on, especially here in the United States, supposedly we work more than anyone, and it's like slavery in a sense. And I'm not meaning that out of disrespect or anything, but you sleep, you get up, you work, you go home, you sleep, you get up, you work, you go home. A lot of people have 3 different jobs doing this where you don't even get to sleep in between. So maybe you sleep, you go to work, and you work, you go home, you sleep. It's crazy. It's a place where people don't have, and I'm at that place right now because of the change of age and all these other things, and I am medicated and doing different things to try to help it not to be so bad, but I keep pausing because I keep losing my train of thought because of this process that I'm speaking of. But a lot of people are used to just keeping their heads down and going through the grind and don't have the energy to look up and see what the hell is going on around them. They're just doing what they're told, whether it be Fox News or whoever telling them what to think, what to do, yada yada, and not believing the things that are right before our eyes because they don't have time to see it. They're working, or they're going to school, or they're doing whatever. They're being a cog in the machine against their will because they don't even know what's really happening.
Want us to evolve to a space of spiritual freedom and free thinking because they know that once this happens, there's nothing that they can do to stop it. And the great solar flash is coming. That's why we're seeing all the changes with our earth, with our moon, with the way that we feel, with the vibration of the earth, with the Schumann resonance, with all of these things that are lining up, just like David Wilcock says. That's the reason he's no longer here, because he knew what was going to happen. He's been studying.
And just like with the other people out there that worked anti-gravitational jobs and other jobs, they could be researchers, they could be scientists, they could be so many people that have clearance, that know things, that have seen things, that might have said something to a friend and they disappear. And okay, so the list for other people, I've lost count. Last time I saw it was like 12. I have a list of 25 people so far. And every time I look into it more, there's more people added. And people just don't know about it because they're not going down the rabbit hole. It is insane. They are covering something up. They don't want us to know. It just makes me wonder, why is Trump doing all this stuff he's doing? Yes, you know, he did stuff before, but not to this extent. It's just like you only live once thing, and we're all about to meet some sort of demise or something. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Why would he be doing this? And why would our government not be taking him out already? Nobody else in the history of the United States of America has been able to get away with even a fraction of this shit. What the fuck is happening? It's insane. And it just reminds me, all these distractions going on. All of us are in our house. We can't get off our phone. We gotta watch this and this and that and that. And all these videos that are touching on this topic, this subject of the E-files, UFO disclosure, yada, yada, yada. So many different things to refract from other things. Kind of putting us in the spin, you know, putting us in circles, circles, circles. All circles connect. Just stop. Put it down. Take off your shoes. Walk outside. put a blanket down or sit in a chair or whatever and look up. Like, there is stuff happening around us all the time. It is insane. And like they were saying about spiritual stuff, we're at a point right now where the veil is very thin and we're not even around harvest time. And yeah, those of us that are aware. Those of us that choose to not observe the world around us and just stay on the path of the shepherd. And I'm not talking about our brother, JC, but Big Brother. You know what I'm saying? Keep your nose down, keep to the grind, don't ask questions, don't even look into this. And I have a relative that actually was looking into this stuff with me years ago, and she had to stop because it really started fucking with her mental welfare. It's hard, like, if you've believed something for so long and your eyes are open to what's actually going on, it can really mess you up.
This
So
for
be
a
careful.
very long time, and his mentor Edgar Cayce, he says that he is the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce himself. So you guys study this, look into this. He's onto something.
On this episode of Tweaker Geographic, all aboard the Polar Crack Express. A DUI is inevitable as this specimen glides across the crack tracks to get to the local Tweak Obel.
On this episode of Tweaker Geographic, we witness a rare musical performance in the wild.
Oh, yeah.
The tweaker has become both artist and instrument. Using nothing but his chest, he creates a rhythm known only to him, each beat carefully delivered with passion and questionable technique. There are no speakers, no audience, yet the performance continues, because out here, music isn't heard, it's felt. On this episode of Tweaker Geographic, we witness a full-scale vocal performance, the tweaker fully immersed, delivering notes with absolute conviction. No stage, no mic, yet the energy remains unmatched.
There are 1,833 of them that have been living underground between 100 and 200 miles beneath the surface. They've been here, some of them have been here a long, long time.
Oh my god, okay. He's talking about lizard people or lizard beings or reptilians or whatever you would like to call them. This page is called Interesting Shit, 7 to 22 foot tall and living amongst us, but they don't want you to know that, nor do they want you to know they are the ones in control of Earth. Have you guys seen the videos of news anchors and people like that on TV where the face starts to digitize and morph because their shield is coming down and they get the little weird lizard blink and the slits in the eyes? It's really strange.
They're ugly. I mean, they think we're ugly too. You know, and I guess it's all a matter of perspective and belief system. In my belief system, and I'm only taking responsibility for me, they're ugly. They're anywhere from 7 to 22 feet tall. They can weigh up to 1,800 pounds. They're reptilian. The longer, the ones that have stubby tails, if you see one that has no tail, he's of the warrior class or the worker class. The longer the tail, the higher their rank. When you see one with long tails, with winged appendages, he's considered royalty. Whenever you see one, you ought to just run like hell. You shouldn't approach it. You shouldn't provoke it. Just get the hell out of its way. Just get out of its way. Just run. You know, there is a way to kill them. If you can't cut off their head, they have two hearts. There's one here underneath this armpit and one here. Or if you can't get to that area, you need to slow it down. You need to hit it right above its groin area. It has a very large liver. You need to wound it there to slow it down. It is not something where man-to-man combat you're going to be able to deal with, because they apparently have the strength of 12, 15 men. They're incredibly quick. They're incredibly psychic. They know what you're going to do before you do it. Don't respect human life in any way whatsoever.
That's crazy. I don't want
Guys, new footage is now starting to surface of the
lot of underwater.
Guys, new footage.
Okay, so I was talking about this chick on my show, and even before I started looking into the disappearance of this, I saw a flash of her, and then I don't know what happened. My electronic things, as far as internet, etc., have been going crazy with things, but she is on the list, and she is one of the originals. I'm sorry, I gotta look in my listy things over here. I can't find her. But yeah, listen to this guy. He'll probably tell you. She was talking about anti-gravitational stuff, all the different things that she had learned in her job, yada yada. She'd gotten away from her job because there was things happening that she didn't quite agree with. And then she was showing her setup, where her computer is, where her window is, etc., I've talked about this on past shows, especially the one that was talking about the missing scientists and researchers, etc. Her hand started to get burns on it, and you could look at the lineup of the window to her computer and the line of where the window seal was and where her hand was, and her hands on top of the keyboard of her computer. They were using energy-directed weapons, and it was burning her hands at, like, the wrist point nearest the keyboard, through which the tunnel of energy came through the window. You just gotta check this out.
Is now starting to surface of the scientist that was researching anti-gravity. She's in a complete panic in the video, saying that she was being hit by some kind of energy weapon, and she has the burns on her body to prove it. Her name was Amy Eskridge, and she wasn't just working on free energy, she was actually trying to research how to manipulate gravity itself. She claimed that this has been discovered 4 different times, and every single time it was covered up before it could go public. In the video, she's working on a computer that isn't even connected to the internet. She says that somebody is scanning what she's typing through the window, and it's burning her hands while she's typing.
My hands still burn because there's damage, but it's like my body relaxed when we barricaded this, and it was like, oh, like relief, like immediately.
Whenever she went to block the window, she said that the burning stopped immediately and there was an outline of her body left on the glass. You can literally see her posture in the window as if it was an x-ray. A former CIA weapons expert on her team identified the exact device, and he said that it was powered by car batteries inside of a vehicle that was parked outside of her home. And actually, for 4 to 5 years straight, she reported multiple different times that an Eastern European man in a Lexus had been parked outside of her house watching her. Amy Eskridge is the woman that texted her friend and said that if they say that I did this to myself, I did not. And then they ruled it as self-inflicted. She predicted exactly what they would say. They said it. I'm going to be staying updated on this, so make sure you add me and come back for more.
A lot of underwater facilities.
And I'm kind of freaked out right now because I had a list that was of the missing 12, and the missing 12 turned into so much more, and they were on these sticky notes. I have 2 different piles, one of songs that I would like to sing at karaoke, and then other ones that are random notes about people I'd like to have on my show, etc. And I'm telling you, where are my scientists and specialists? This is crazy.
Located around the planet, especially in Marianas Trench. There's a portal there that the extraterrestrials have been using forever. One of the facilities that's down under that is monitoring portals and monitoring ET activity underwater. A lot of extraterrestrial craft are kept underwater. It's a great place to hide, and they're interdimensional. And some use portals and some don't, because they can just fold on themselves and be somewhere else, because they've already mastered, the time-space continuum and can travel between worlds. That's a whole other physics thing.
Could you talk a little bit about, with these underground and underwater facilities, do you know where you are when you go, and how would you get underwater?
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. People are like, oh well, there's two ways to build facilities. They build a space station. They send up like different compartments, and then they connect to each other like Legos, and then you have this big space station. So one of the ways they do it is they drop these things down, and it depends how deep it is, and they can assemble these with underwater drone robotic things from the surface, and make these facilities underground just by connecting them and vacuum pressuring them, and they can survive there forever and ever and ever and ever. The other way is they will drill under the sea ground, and work from the bottom up. It's how they usually do it with these types of cities. Now they have developed a special magnetic field to withstand these great pressures underneath these deep seas, and what happens is it will create this bubble of air, and it's a very thick I don't know the science behind it, but it creates an electromagnetic field that pushes the water out, and then from there they release this gas and this substance, which makes this 3 to 4 foot thick clear steel. It's metal, but it's clear dome. And then they start funneling things from Florida and California to these facilities underground by using the same things they use the maglev tubes, where they're melting rock. These are very huge interstates underground that go to these facilities. So anyway, so they're working from the ground up, usually, is how they do it, depending on how deep they're going.
Where does all the dirt go when they dig? How do they keep it?
Well, they do liquefied. It's granite, usually rock, not so much dirt. And it is liquefied and melted. And it looks like the walls look like, obsidian, like glass. And that liquid is easily transported out using special vehicles, anti-gravity vehicles, and other vehicles very quickly to the surface. They're artificially intelligent, so it's AI. They just run consistently all day long, and they're doing it right now as we speak for other places. So that's where it goes. It's a very simple process.
Okay, and it's not noticed. It goes unnoticed. Like they could be digging a base right now, and no one would be able to tell.
Yeah. Well, there's other spots too, where they can dump things on the way. It depends on how far they're going and where it's at, number one, and how far the actual facility is. And I was not part of the construction, by the way. I just know this because I asked the same question to a couple of contractors that were involved with making the facilities, like the one that's down there by Mountain Air, New Mexico.
So let's get back to the underwater bases, since these are these photos. So this is, I guess, in an episode you spoke of having to do procedures underwater. And could you explain why? Like, why would you not just put the being in a tank and operate them in a regular room? Why would you have to be underwater as well?
Well, some of the beings come from water worlds, and there's a lot of beings that live here. We call them like aquafarians. There's kind of the code we use for that.
Kind of like Rastafarians.
They live here already. They've been living here a long time, but we do have visitors that also come from very far away. That their ships have liquid in them of all different sorts of materials. This specific one, it looks like a mermaid man with little fins. There's sometimes that you cannot. People are like, well, why can't you use those big tubes? And because you don't have the visualization, number one. So we actually have operating rooms as big as this room filled with seawater that we walk into with these suits and take samples, because the bodies have to be kept in the water or they'll deteriorate with pure oxygen on the surface. So that's why we cannot, use these little capsules and stuff. You have to be ambidextrous here. You're talking very small instruments and things like that. This is a good depiction of that. And we have these special boots that keep us, they're magnetic, that keep us on the ground. You know, everything is contained in the suit. This is just one of the artist renditions that I depicted for them for this procedure. So that's everything an operating room would have.
Let me tell you why this is a very disturbing photo, because this man right here in the white shirt, his name is Randy Ertman. Now, these police officers are holding him back from entering the woods behind them because they just found out that his 14-year-old daughter, Jennifer Ertman, and her best friend, 16-year-old Elizabeth Pena, were found raped and murdered in those woods. Jennifer and Elizabeth were two best friends that were planning a sleepover, and before that sleepover began, they were just going to hang out with some friends that lived in an apartment complex pretty close to Elizabeth's house. Now, Elizabeth had a curfew, so these two hung out at this party for a little longer than they thought, and they needed to make it home by curfew. The girls decided to take a shortcut through this park right here called TC Jester Park. This is in Houston, Texas, and this was going to shave about 10 minutes off of their walk back to Elizabeth's. What they didn't know was that 6 teenage boys were already in this park, drunk out of their minds, having a gang initiation that night. Hi, my name is Chrissy. I have a true...
Hi, Chrissy. It really doesn't matter if you're drinking or whatever you're doing. That is not okay.
Crime podcast called Residue, and if you love movies and true crime, follow along. So this gang initiation was being performed by this teenage gang called the Black and White Gang, and they were initiating into the gang 17-year-old Raul Villarreal. Within 40 minutes of this gang initiation ending, these teenage boys just sitting around drinking a lot of beer, Jennifer and Elizabeth crossed their path. I will tell you that this is one of the most difficult true crime cases that I ever covered on my podcast. There is a book called Pure Murder by Corey Mitchell, which was one of the most horrific books I've ever read in my life. I still can't get most of the images out of my head because what happened to Elizabeth and Jennifer in those woods that night is just beyond anything your brain can even comprehend. One of the boys named Jose Median often goes by the name Joe. He actually walked up to Elizabeth, hit on her, tried to touch her, and she brushed his hand away and she kept walking, and this pissed him off. Jose, he forcibly takes Elizabeth by the neck and he drags her down to where the other boys are sitting. At this point, Jennifer could have run away. She could have gotten away, but she wasn't going to leave her friend there. They were best friends. So she tries to help Elizabeth, and in turn, she also gets taken down by the boys. 5 of the 6 gang members present proceed to sexually assault and torture these 2 teenage girls. It goes on for more than an hour. And after it's starting to become a reality that these girls could tell on them, they could identify these boys. One of the boys named Peter Cantu, he tells everyone, hey, we got to do something about these girls. We've got to kill them. What is so just disturbing and chilling is the fact that one of the boys that was there that night, he was only 14 years old. He was the younger brother of Jose Median. His name was Uni Median. And he was told by these boys, you're too young to watch us do what we're about to do, so we're going to need you to stay back, while they dragged the girls into the woods. Jennifer was the same exact age. They brutally beat these girls in those woods, and then before they leave, they steal a Goofy Disney watch off of Jennifer's wrist and give it to the youngest gang member, Uni. Jennifer and Elizabeth's bodies were not found for 4 days. And when the police did find their bodies in the woods, it was because they got a tip from somebody who knew these boys. Police were led to this spot because Peter Cantu, one of the boys in the gang, he had an older brother named Joe. They all went to his home after they murdered the girls, and Joe had a wife named Christina. Christina had been abused by Joe, and she did not understand why these boys were just talking about this murder like it was nothing. They were just bragging about what they did to these teenage girls. These boys are arrested very quickly, and all of them receive a death sentence. Their names were Peter Cantu, Jose Median, Derek Sean O'Brien, Efrain Perez, and Raul Villarreal all received death sentences. Uni Median, the younger brother, the 14-year-old, he testified against everyone except his brother, and he received a 40-year prison sentence. These boys were executed, and the first one to be executed was Derek O'Brien on July 1st, 2006. And before his execution, he expressed his regrets for his actions to the families of Jennifer and Elizabeth. When he was executed, the families were allowed to watch. Now, this was the first time in Texas history that they allowed the victims' families to come in and witness an execution. And Derek Sean O'Brien, he died within 20 seconds. After the execution, Elizabeth's father remarked it only took 20 seconds for him to die. I wish to God that my daughter could have died that easily. Put a needle in her arm and just go to sleep. I wish to hell he could have died the way that she did. Sean O'Brien was executed. Condolence cookies were given to.
And that, oh my gosh, the government can't do that because it's inhumane. It's not allowed. But I believe in an eye for an eye, so I believe the punishment should fit the crime. But how do you do that? If it's inhumane and goes against so many laws. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind is a true script. And no matter what happens, there is never any relief for the family. What do you actually do? I mean, to have that evil out of the world would be great. It'd be great. But I don't know. What about old school days where the family would take it into their own hands? Like that to me seems fair. And that might seem too rugged or heartless or whatever, but when somebody breaks or destroys your heart by taking ruthlessly your family member, whether it's hours, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, or years, because certain people are kept for way longer than an hour or two, and things done to them repeatedly. I don't know, maybe we should start to go back to the good old days of taking care of things by way of family.
The family. Now, these were cookies that were made by fellow inmates. Peter Cantu was executed next in that same year, 2006, and when he was asked what were his last words, he said, "I will never forget, nah." 2 years later, Jose Median was executed in 2008, and all three boys were buried in the prison cemetery. The Joe Bird Cemetery in Texas is a cemetery where prisoners go after being executed because the families have never claimed their bodies. Two of the boys, Efrain Perez and Raul Villarreal, the boy who was being initiated that day, they had their death sentences overturned because they were too young. So it was ruled that anybody under the age of 17 could not be tried and put to death. So these boys were given life with the possibility of parole. These two boys will be up for parole in 2029. Median, the youngest of the group, he gave an interview nearly 30 years after the murders, and he said that this was the first night that he ever hung out with his brother and his friends. Uni Median should be released in 2033. Randy Ertman, the father in this picture of Jennifer Ertman, stood outside the courtroom and these boys were sentenced.
So is that the kid that they were like, hey, you don't need to be here to see this, and they sent him away? That's not right, if that is who I think it is. Like, these guys were a pack, like a pack of wild dogs or whatever. Once the dogs get together, they're ruthless, not toothless. Like, they use their teeth a lot and they like to kill, they like to damage, they like to do things. But for this little kid, for him to be sent away by his brother and his friends, I don't know. Maybe it's because he didn't run away and tell somebody. I feel bad for him too. There's so many victims and everything happens for a reason, so I don't know.
And he said, why can't they put a belt around their necks? Why can't they stomp down on their faces? The parents of Jennifer and Elizabeth successfully advocated for the laws to change in Texas. These families fought for the rights for the family members of victims to be allowed to witness executions. After his daughter was murdered, Randy Ertman became a victims' rights activist, and sadly, on August 18th, 2014, Randy Ertman died of lung cancer. Randy Ertman was a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, yeah.
We are in the middle of disclosure happening right now. It's been unfolding, and right now it's ramping up faster than ever before. And it might not be what you think. You might be told that disclosure is about the revealing of, species of aliens that have been coming to our planet or that are coming from somewhere else. But the truth is, disclosure itself is part of a spiritual war that is happening right now and is raging on our planet. The phenomenon.
Well, and, people have been saying aliens are demons. Demons are aliens. The thing that would irritate me is when I would tell people about my paranormal ghost experiences, seeing my mom or the lady in black who used to be at our house when we had so many different things happening, and she would warn us that it was going to happen. And so we would do what she said, protect ourselves. And then we were protected from it. That is not a demon. I don't think ghosts are demons. Ghosts are something different, but I am not so sure about aliens and demons not being one and the same.
My family is known as the most documented and investigated UFO case. My dad is Chris Bledsoe. Since 2007, our whole family has been experiencing the phenomenon very consistently and have been able to show thousands and thousands of people for themselves proof of the phenomenon and it being benevolent, of it being consciousness-based, and of it being spiritual. These beings that we perceive as angels, we don't know everything. We don't pretend to know everything or have all the answers, but what we feel very confident enough to say we know without a doubt, and by the way, government people have been knocking on our door asking us for answers for many years now. That's not a flex. That is truth, because this is important. The truth is that this is about the heart. It is about the landscape of consciousness between every human, the energy happening in our hearts around the world, because we're all connected, and the suppressed spirit of humanity. These beings told my dad they work for creation.
And I think it's interesting that she's using binaural beats in the background. So maybe she's doing that to calm your mind as she's telling you the story, so you might take it in more. I don't know. Bledsoe, baby.
And when he encountered the lady who got the attention of all of these agencies around the world, yes, around the world, not just talking about America, other countries too, Australia, Dubai, England, etc. The lady basically said that we were suppressed, that the divine feminine within each of us has been suppressed. And what does that mean? That means the spirit, the unseen, the emotional, intuitive, and spiritual side of humanity, because the masculine is more based in logic, reasoning, reality, and physical matter, whereas the feminine is the non-physical, emotional, spiritual side of life. But that she has been suppressed on a large scale, and that should we choose the right path, because remember, the spiritual war happening has to do with our free will and our choice as humanity, that when we choose, if we choose the right path towards compassion, love, and enlightenment and goodness, that she would be returning, that she would be bringing darkness to light. This sounds scary, but listen. Bringing darkness to light has to do with revealing the dark force that has been raging chaos, wreaking havoc in the world. But in the process, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be icky. And we're in that right now. And it will soon be cleansed and brought to light. Light will win. And I believe that this path has been chosen because of multiple events that have taken place based on what the lady has said, what my dad has seen, what we've been shown and communicated to. But the trouble doesn't stop just because I think we're on this path. I think it's more important now than ever for us to learn just how important your intentions are and your heart is. Like, what is the state of your heart? How do you treat other people? How are you thinking about other people? Your thoughts are things.
More than myself.
And what things are you keeping in your in yourself that are affecting you and affecting everyone? The lady also said that she would be returning balance between the masculine and the feminine and bringing a new knowledge into the world. She gave an alignment. We're hoping, not sure when the alignment is, but that this would be the revealing of a new knowledge, and she would be waking up the hearts and minds of the people. Disclosure, not about little aliens and in crafts of different species and cataloged by blah, 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 blah. That might be real. I'm not saying that it couldn't be, but that's not what disclosure is. Disclosure is a little bit of a circus right now. And it is on the tides of this spiritual battle that is taking place. So use your discernment, wake up, back up, zoom out, look at it with a different perspective. Nobody has control over your heart, your human, powerful heart that is a spark, an emanation of God, that has spiritual gifts, that has intuition, that has a knowing, that has the ability to leave your body and exist for eternity. That's who you are. And we are all that same source living out a unique life. The reason darkness exists is because light doesn't exist without darkness. Like, we have to have both. We are all God living out a unique experience. You might think, oh, well, if we're just God role playing and acting out an experience in life, then it doesn't matter. It does matter. It all matters. You matter. God loves you. God lives within you. God is you.
First.
That's what Jesus was saying. The kingdom of God is within you. And life, because you are so powerful, because you can manifest your thoughts into reality, your life can be hell on earth, or it can be heaven on earth. Don't be deceived. Don't live in the darkness. Choose the light. Let's wake up, people. Come on. You've got this. Sit back, enjoy the circus. Be angry because there's injustice in the world and it really, really sucks. But also remember that you can only do so much. And protecting your peace isn't forsaking other people across the world that you can't do anything to help. Because if we are all consciousness and we are all connected, truly, because we are, you protecting your peace and finding happiness amidst total chaos is actually a divine act, because it's pleasing God, it's pleasing your nervous system, which deserves to feel safe and to feel whole and to feel happy. But also it affects the greater consciousness web that we are all a part of. Me thriving across the world will help you in some way, whether.
Okay, so when she's talking about the nervous system and stuff, I watch a chick, she's referred to as the golden giraffe, and she's amazing, and she teaches you about your nervous system. And one of the things that you can do to reset it is to kind of, you know how you do the forward stretch, touch your toes. And then as you're coming up, just start acting like one of those balloon people and letting your arms and your body and everything just go all over the place. Do that for, just doing it for a second made me dizzy at this point, but do that for a good 5 to 10 seconds, or until you feel like you've reset your nervous system. And that's supposed to reset, aka reboot you, aka your nervous system. And it actually does work. It's weird, but you gotta try it.
Whether or not it's now or down the line. Your story is important. I love you. I'm cheering you on. Keep looking up.
So yeah, if you pass away and leave the house to your family, they don't have to pay the mortgage, and they won't have to pay crazy taxes on the assets after you're gone. Even if you're still living and you become disabled, you can still provide for your family through mortgage protection insurance. Seriously, this is a must-have for anyone who's a primary income in their household. I'll link the site at the end of the.
All right, guys, stay with me because this one's a doozy. So have you ever heard the story about the guitarist who...
Okay, so here it says, my best friend sold his soul. I have to tell you guys something, and this really weirded me out earlier. My grandson wanted. Okay, so he comes over to stay the night sometimes. And I was like, hey, what do you want me to turn something on for you? What do you want to watch? He said, Cuphead. And it took him about 3 times saying it for me to realize he's actually saying Cuphead, because the first time I heard it, I'm like, I can't be hearing this right. Cuphead? That doesn't make sense. Well, I didn't watch all of it because I'm constantly doing something around here, and they were playing a game at the fair, and each time you lost or someone lost, the devil would take their soul. What the hell? So yeah, and this was under a kid's account. I let him use my kid's account, and he went on and found Cuphead, and it's teaching about selling your soul to the devil. I didn't watch all of it because, it was his bedtime, time for him to go to bed, but I need to look this up. You can look it up too, if you like, but yeah, Cuphead. Very trippy.
Got everything that he ever wanted right after he attended a party in Laurel Canyon, and then spent the rest of his life trying to give whatever that was back. So a few nights ago, I got this message from a follower, and he said, hey, listen, I've got a story for you, but I've never told anybody about this publicly, and it's about one of my best friends back in the 70s, and what happened to him after a party one night in Los Angeles. So obviously I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to know about this, and I need to hear this. And he proceeded to tell me about his friend, who we will call Danny, and he was this insanely talented guitarist, like not just like good, like garage band good. I'm talking like naturally gifted, the kind of guy that could hear a song once and play it better than the original musician who wrote the music.
Hey.
So by the early 70s, Danny's band was starting to get some serious traction, and they weren't huge, but they were good enough to open for some serious big names. And one of the bands that they toured with was Crosby and Nash. And that's where things started to really change for his career, because once you start touring with bands like that, you're suddenly around people with money, influence, and some pretty serious connections. So according to my follower, Danny became absolutely obsessed with making it. Not just being successful, I'm talking like legendary. And one night after a show in California, a couple of well-dressed guys approached him backstage after they had played. And they didn't look like musicians. They weren't fans, no groupies, no nothing like that. They introduced themselves as executives from a major record label. And my follower actually left out the record label. He refused to tell me. But they told Danny they'd been watching him and that he had something special and that there were people who wanted to meet him. And, then they handed him this address to this house in Laurel Canyon. They told him that there was a party happening there the next night, and if he was serious about his future, he'd be there. So my followers said Danny almost actually didn't go. He was really conflicted about it. There was something that was telling him not to go, but the idea of missing out on something that big, it aided him, and he decided to go. So the next night, he went. And he drives up into Laurel Canyon, and right away something feels off, is how he described it to me. The streets are very, very quiet, almost too quiet. And, when he gets to this house, it's absolutely massive, like way bigger than anything you'd expect tucked up in those little hills. There are cars as far as the eye could see, but there's no music, no laughter, there's no party sounds.
Even
and
the frogs
still,
are quiet. And
the front door is actually wide open. So Danny just walks in, and inside, once he's in, it's dimly lit, like everything's being kept a secret, just dark enough that you can, quite make out the faces a little bit. And there are people there, but they're not really talking much. They're just standing around and just watching. He said it felt less like a party and more like he had walked into something that he wasn't really supposed to see. And then one of the executives from the night before appears, and they were all smiles, like he was expecting Danny to show up.
buddy.
And he tells Danny, hey man, come on, everyone important is actually hanging out downstairs. So they lead him down into the lower level of the home, and this is where things got really weird, he said, because the room down there is absolutely different from the room upstairs.
Yeah.
It's bright lights, expensive furniture, and a handful of people sitting in a circle.
Ooh, so it's like meant to seduce you?
All dressed almost in like a formal wear.
Mm-hmm. We're
Like they're
serious
not
here.
there to party, they're there for
No,
something
we're
completely
serious.
different. And one
Yes,
of them
we're here to do
gestures for
business.
Danny to sit down, and then they start talking to him, and they're talking to him about his future, but no contracts were ever mentioned, and then no music deals were even brought up. But instead they were talking about legacy and about how some artists
yeah.
fade and some artists become immortal. And they
Yeah.
tell him straight up, we can give you everything that you can think of: fame, influence, recognition, beyond
Everything
anything
you've
that you
ever
can imagine
wanted.
or comprehend. And Danny, being young and hungry
beyond.
and right on the edge of success, he asked the obvious question that any of us would
Don't
have
ask.
asked. Okay, well, what do you want in return? And that's when the room shifted and it got quiet. One of them leans forward and says, just a commitment. That was it. So now, according to my follower, Danny never fully
Just your serious attention and commitment to this project.
explained what happened next in that room. He would never give details, but he did say that there was something that he had to agree to, and it was something more on the symbolic side of it.
Oh no.
And it was something permanent. And when he came back from that party, he was absolutely different. And at first it seemed like whatever.
He's like, oh, maybe I'm tired. Maybe the whole thing just threw me off my game. No. What happened to you? What did you do? This happened to you.
It was that they did worked, because within months, his band exploded into popularity. They got record deals.
And I guarantee you, the reward was not worth what he paid for that. And the reward which he would have gotten had he done this without selling his soul would have been more readily accepted and made his heart happy, etc., etc. But with him selling his soul, it took the joy away from the prize. And that's one of the biggest things about the prize, is the joy and the happiness that it brings. There's a song out that is talking about being on vacation because you love your job. So you're on vacation every day. Man, I want to say 311, but that's not it. It's somebody else. I took a screenshot so I could sing that at karaoke, but there's a ring to truth to it. And if you love your job, you can do it every day. Doesn't matter the pay or whatever. And you're on vacation. But for what he did is not a good idea. Don't do that. Yes, it might be a quick route to where you're going, but if they offer you that, you were on that route in the first place. Just say no and keep going. Don't be tempted by the quick path. Stick to the path you're on. Seriously.
Radio play, bigger tours, and everything that he ever wanted. But Danny wasn't enjoying any of it. My follower said his friend actually started to become hollow. And like whatever made him, like his personality, it was fading. And he stopped writing the music that he used to, the way that he used to, with feeling. He stopped laughing, stopped sleeping. And the worst part, he became paranoid beyond belief.
Yeah.
He would tell my follower that he felt like he was always being watched, and not by...
I was about to say that. You have no peace. You feel like you're being watched constantly. So you're living in fear.
Fans, not by the label, but by something else. Never someone, always something else. And something that he feels was tied to that night. So years went by, and instead of getting better, Danny actually got worse. And he started isolating himself even more. He refused to perform certain songs, would never go near Laurel Canyon again. And one night, after a few drinks, he finally broke down, and he told my follower, he said, I didn't think it was real. I thought it was just symbolic, like selling out or whatever. And then he looked at him and he said, but I gave them something that I can never give back, and they will never give it back. And not long after that, Danny disappeared from the music scene completely. No big announcement, no farewell tour. He just absolutely went gone. And my follower told me that he tried reaching out to him for years. They were such close friends. But Danny never responded until one day he got a letter. There was no return address on it and just a single page inside. And it pretty much said, tell anyone who will listen, if you're ever invited to a party in Laurel Canyon and it's under the guise of your career, don't ever go. And that was pretty much it. There was no signature, no explanation. And ever since that day that he got that letter, he has never heard from Danny again.
Nope.
On this episode of Tweaker Geographic, a nighttime street performer emerges from the urban wild, draped.
Hey, this guy is draped in a hospital gown, but he has the couth and the mindset to wear a black undersuit under this hospital gown. His lovely hospital gown. And then it looks like he might have yellow Crocs. I can't tell because he's moving so quickly. It's a bit blurry.
In mysterious fabric and armed with unmatched confidence, the tweaker begins an advanced ceremonial dance. Notice the footwork. Precise, aggressive, strangely elegant. Each step lands with purpose, as if communicating directly with forces beyond human understanding. The upper body follows, unstable yet committed. Traffic continues. Civilization watches cautiously. But the performance does not break. For tonight, the concrete jungle has found its ballerina. On this episode of Tweaker Geographic, we observe Speed Racer piloting his invisible vehicle from the passenger seat.
Oh, no.
His hands grip a steering wheel that exists only in his dimension. Navigating through traffic the actual bus driver can't see.
No.
The other passengers watch as he executes a perfect left turn while the bus goes straight.
All right, so I wasn't sure I was going to share this because my goal on here is to never strike
Holy
fear.
shnikes.
My goal on here is to bring communities together, start conversations, learn from one another,
Positivity.
respect one another.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's time that I share this story. Well, it's not a story. It's coming from the source and facts. But one of my very dear friends who I've kind of talked about on here before, who has shared some very important things that I've shared with all of you. He was a scientist. I shouldn't have said he, but yes, he's a scientist. He works with seismic activity. He works with a lot of different things that are in the science industry. I don't have to go in because I don't really want to tell too much about it. But he reached out to me about 2 weeks ago and was like, hey, my team and I have been tracking some seismic activity, and I think you should talk to your TikTok followers about this. So I didn't think I was going to do it because, I don't want to strike fear, and that's not my purpose. But now what I'm about to tell you is showing up on the news.
Okay, dude. Basically anything that's going on these days in the good old US of A has a really, really strong back taste of fear. So don't worry yourself with that conundrum.
Like CNN and also news reports out of London and Australia and all over the entire world that in the coming months, there's predicted a mile-wide volcano that is in the Pacific Ocean that is expected to go off in the next coming months. Now, when he reached out to me, they have predicted it's going to be on June 5th. And this volcano that is potentially about to erupt will trigger over 10,000 earthquakes all over the entire globe in one day.
Yep.
Now, I don't know what else to do with this information, but he was very adamant that perhaps I should share this information with the people who follow me. Now, I don't know if you've seen the news reports. I saw the one on CNN, and the crazy thing is it was just a scrolling bar at the bottom, not even a main story. And I don't understand why 10,000 earthquakes happening in one day and a mile-wide volcano going off in the ocean is not a headline story. So let me know.
And the rabbit hole gets deeper. Okay, chances are you saw the video already. Army Captain Skip Atwater, founder of the remote viewing program Gondola Wish for the U.S. Army, had an encounter with an alien, found out the secrets of space travel. I went back, got the clip for you. And while I was looking through it, I noticed some other things that were interesting. Let's watch it together. I'll come back after it's done, and we are going to go deep.
It's hard to talk about dimensions, but I was standing behind an alien in a spacecraft, just a small one, which I understand get bigger and smaller depending upon. At any rate, he said, "You shouldn't be here." And I said, "I know, I realize this is a strange place, but before I go, could I ask you a question?" And he said, "Okay." And I said, "How do you get from here to Alpha Centauri? We can't do that. The only thing that we think about is I have to go really fast for a really long time. How is it that you can go to Alpha Centauri without any problem?" And essentially, he said, "You wouldn't understand." So I said, "I agree that that's a problem. However, I know that you have access to my mental thoughts. I mean, you're not talking to me with your mouth. You have access to my mental thoughts, and I understand.
Yeah.
Can you use what information I have in my head and try to explain it to me?" And he said, "Well, do you know what a Rubik's Cube is?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, my son can do them in 2 minutes." He said, "Okay, so imagine a Rubik's Cube, but not necessarily just the 6 sides. Just imagine the concept of a Rubik's Cube." And I said, "Okay.
Okay.
Now imagine on each one of the tiles on the Rubik's Cube has a chart of the elements, an elemental chart."
Okay.
And you say, "Oh, yeah, I know what that is. You know, I've had science in school and everything."
Yeah.
He says, "Now, on
Science
each of the
is
other
my
5
favorite.
surfaces, there's also elemental charts."
My favorite.
And I said, "So, okay, but what's the deal?" And he said, "Well, you're thinking about going that way very fast for a very long time."
Uh-huh.
What he didn't say to me, which I'm thinking right now, there's no space and time. I'm only thinking that right now. That wasn't part of the explanation. And he says, "So what you do to get to Alpha Centauri is you just twist the cube." And I said,
"Shriek.
What do you mean?" He said,
Okay, so there was a lot of value in what he said, but if you pay attention closely, there's even more value in what he didn't say. Remember, he
Okay.
opened the video saying it's hard when you start to talk about dimensions. This
Mhm.
implies that they were talking about an interdimensional phenomenon that is not only interdimensional, but still
Yeah.
relevant to our
Okay.
own star system. Essentially, that to get from here to here is not a matter of traveling far, it's a matter of changing states between 2 dimensions in the same reality. But that's only still on the surface level. So come with me. I want to go deeper. Oh, I was not talking about you. So you remember when the alien was having the
Okay, buddy.
nonverbal communication with the captain, and he was giving
Yes.
an example of how their travel worked.
I'm constantly being told because I'll say something that somebody is thinking, or basically that's it. I'm told quite often, stay the fuck out of my head, because this person has been dealing with this for over 20 years. But yeah, some of us are born with these gifts. Better trust and believe. We know what we're talking about.
The Rubik's Cube with the elements on it.
Mm.
Clearly, he wasn't talking about a literal Rubik's Cube. And I don't
No.
believe he was talking about the literal elements either. I believe that those were...
And also, if you like earrings, I'm going to have to take some pictures and upload them for tomorrow night's show, but I have, you won't believe this, but UFO with kitties, UFO with aliens, and then also Bigfoot UFO earrings and keychains that I have created that you can purchase at your discretion. But yeah.
examples to express the fundamental nature of whatever it was that it was configuring to get.
So that's where I was going. I was like, why the heck did I say that? One of them is a Rubik's Cube, but it's not a normal Rubik's Cube. It has, I believe, an extra layer to it. What the hell is that even? I don't know. But I have that as earrings and keychains, including an alien riding on Rolling Stone's Lips and Tongue.
a match and appear at the location. In my opinion, the best candidate for this fundamental building block would be vibration, specifically a vibrational frequency. I don't really want to explain, but whether you're coming through the quantum physics door or the esoteric door, that is the most likely answer, which would reduce something like traveling vast distances or even traveling across time as matching the signature frequency of that state, whether you believe that is a state within a unified field of potentiality or a state within an infinite mind. And now we dive to the third level of freak. Okay. So this whole thing had me looking at a whole bunch of different phenomena that's come up in our past. And it had me looking at it in a whole new light, specifically crop circles. And I was looking at these crop circles, and the words of the alien started to pop in my head again, like we make a match and we appear. I said, okay, you match frequency. Then I looked at crop circles all different, because when you look at many of these crop circles, tell me what you see.
Oh, wow. Seriously. Also, there have been scientific experiences or experiments where someone would put a sheet of paper or some plywood that is a little bit thicker than paper, particle board, whatever you want to assume, but putting salt out there or sugar and having the speaker beneath it and then playing the music or whatever, and then getting these certain designs, which he flashed really quickly before our eyes. But if you really look at it, if you pause and take a look, you can see some of these frequency designs that we have seen in the past online. Yes. Oh, man. I paused just after it was there, but yeah.
Cymatics. Vibratory snapshots of specific frequencies.
That's what
Crop circles. Could be the same thing. But why?
Could crop circles just be a snapshot of the signature frequency of the dimension that these so-called aliens come from?
Could crop circles really just be QR codes and just aliens saying, hit me up, bro, hit my line. Yo, hit my line. Here's my contact info.
Give me a booty call.
How freaky would that be if a symbol is
That'd
what
be
you
so
would need
freaky.
to contact something? You got to remember, I'm looking at this through a mystic lens, from an esoteric and occult perspective. And when I see something like that in grass, I don't see art or fanciful geometry. I see potential contact. Okay? It looks a lot like a sigil. Now, what is a sigil? In basic terms, a sigil is an anchor point of a specific energy signature that facilitates contact. They have sigils for angels, sigils for demons, and everything in between. The deeper mechanics of it are when you hold a sigil in your mind, you create a channel with the frequency, right, with the state that that sigil represents.
Nice.
You can make a sigil on your own out of anything. You could hold an image in your mind, draw what it feels like on a piece of paper, and now you've encoded that energy into that symbol. Could that be the same thing that these entities are doing with crop circles? Could staring at a crop circle and holding that energy in your mind be the key to some form of contact? I don't know.
And this is what everything I've learned, mostly from indigenous tribes around the world, and from certain spiritual understandings. But
Elder,
all of this, what's going on at this moment, all these incredible.
Melchizedek, give me a break. That is not his real name, but changes are coming. This is by Elder Drunvalo Melchizedek. Wow, your name. Chef's kiss. Just kidding. Drunvalo, Drunvalo, last name, if you know how to spell Melchizedek, get going. Get looking it up. If you don't, it is okay, ready? Melchizedek. Melchizedek. Here we go.
Changes that are happening all around the world, from the environment to the wars and all these various things. From a deep spiritual point of view, this has to do with the cycles, and it's the movement of the earth through space and time and dimension.
Yeah.
And there are places in these movements when the earth makes changes. It changes. We are about to experience, from my belief of what I've been studying all this, we are about to experience a pole shift. First a magnetic pole shift and a physical pole shift. And that's huge, because it's never happened with this many people on Earth before. The last time, 13,000 years ago, the poles shifted, there were a few million people on the Earth. And if you read the Mayan records, I think it was, I can't remember exactly, but I believe it was 11 million people died in a single night when that pole shifted. And
yeah, because.
But now we're talking about close to 7 billion. And this is
okay, so I'm saying because, and I did not always know about this. I learned about this within the last 3 years, I want to say, but mud floods. So there's different architecture, different things like that, including the Great Wall of China, where there's holes, just like in the Alamo, where you can stick your gun through there or whatever weapon you have and shoot whoever's on the other side. Did you know that the Great Wall of China has these holes in the side of the walls to shoot towards China? That's where the Tartarians come through. And the Great World's Fair of, I want to say 1918, but I know it was early. That's what I want to say. We're going to build this up, show it to everybody, which they probably had it blocked off for a very long time. We're going to show it to everybody, and then we're going to tear it down the next day. Well, who did they let in after that? There's no way in Hades they put up these buildings made out of cardboard or whatever the heck they're trying to say it was. These are intricate buildings. Some of these buildings are still here today, including in India and other places where the designs are so freaking intricate, there's no way in hell you could do this by hand, as far as like how perfect every angle is on each thing that is carved out. And they also resemble engines. Are these actually engines of some sort of craft that froze up, then became stone because of the mud floods? I don't know. There's so many unanswered questions out there. It's intense.
a really different situation. But when we reach these points, the planet rotates and moves into a new sequence, a new balance. And what the Tibetans and the Hindus talk about, and the Sufis a little bit, is that when
I actually got my New Balance shoes when I was in boot camp, and then a new pair right before I got out. Probably because they expected me to keep running every day. Yeah.
these kind of changes take place, they are never just physical. They are directly connected to human consciousness and all consciousness. Birds, everything. Cows, it doesn't matter what it is. And plants and trees, it affects everything. They would say that if we were to change the orbit around the orbit that we made around the sun, it would be an utter transformation of consciousness, of how we perceived the reality. There's only one reality. There just is whatever there is. But there's lots of ways of interpreting that reality. And the Melchizedek consciousness knows that there's more than 100,000 basic ways of perceiving the reality. that have been discovered. And underneath each one of those is a huge, massive possibilities that fall within each one of those categories. So we're in polarity consciousness, but there are lots of ways of interpreting this. All the possible life forms that can come out of this way of perceiving. We may or may not have an orbital change. I believe we will, but science doesn't believe we will. But science now has come to the place where, beyond any doubt in their mind, they have made a whole presentation through NOVA in 2003 that the magnetic poles of the Earth are about to move. And now they've discovered if you go to the South Pole, the magnetic lines go out the South Pole, wrap around, and go in the North Pole. But what they're finding, there's these holes all over the South Pole area of the South Pole where the lines go out, but they wrap right back in. In other words, they're shutting down. And they now expect that the magnetic poles are going to stop completely, and they're going to reverse themselves. The North Pole is going to become the South, and the South is going to become the North. This is pure science, and they really believe this is going to happen, and it'll probably happen in our lifetime. And because it's increasing so rapidly. Science also knows that whenever the magnetic poles shut down and move to a new positioning, what has always followed behind that is a physical pole shift. And there's a whole study of what they believe of how this takes place, which is extraordinary. I did this on the internet recently. And they think they understand. It's a theory because nobody's been around to actually watch it happen and measure it and know what's happening, but they're pretty sure. So more than likely, we're going to go through a pole shift, and probably inside of this window of time. The Mayans are actually saying we will. And and so that's one thing. And then you have the environmental situation, which will lead, the evidence is overwhelming where that goes. It will lead to one of two places. It'll either lead into an ice age, and which when it does happen, science is able to show that you have about 20 years of crazy weather, which we've definitely had for the last 20 years, and then 3 days. Bam, 72 hours, the clouds back over, and you don't see the sun again for about 90 to 100,000 years. And that's an ice age, the average temperature dropping to minus 50 below zero. And that's probably going to happen too, more than likely. All the ocean currents are slowing down and stopping. These are all the precursors to it. And more than likely, we're going to see both of those things happen in our lifetime. There are those kinds of things would affect every single human relationship on Earth. The financial systems would all collapse, on and on and on and on and on. And scientifically, they don't believe very many people would survive this. Very few. Last time it was really just a handful. And so, yeah, you can look at that from those kinds of levels. And there are a lot of other things that are going on environmentally that are also huge. For example, the carbon dioxide that's creating the global warming up until recently.
Okay, are you ready for this? So last night in Mexico City, journalist Jaime Maussan went live on TV, and what he reveals about the Boogosphere, if legit, it would rewrite human history. So he unleashed a ton of information, but basically he claims that the metallic sphere found in Buga, Colombia, it's finally been decoded. And the carvings on the top are not just random. They're Proto-Sanskrit, the root of humanity's oldest written language. According to Maussan, it tells a story from 12,560 years ago describing great oceans moving, the end of one world and the birth of another world. Then came the lab results. He says that U.S. tests show that the sphere is made of a high-grade refined aluminum mixed with rare earth elements. And he said that it wouldn't have existed at this time. The resin that they carbon dated was 12,560 years old. They were able to carbon date that, not the metal. An engineer named Rodolfo Herrero called it a solid state resonator, not art, but a piece of technology. Local officials even approved a replica monument at the spot where it was found, where vegetation still refuses to grow, I guess. And the man who discovered it, Don Jose, he just said that he knew it was not from here. Masson says that the glyphs may warn of a global cataclysm, the same one basically that ended the Ice Age and promised full transparency on every test moving forward. He ended the broadcast staring straight into the camera, and he said, "This is one of the greatest discoveries of all time. We are only beginning to understand who made it." Whew, it's a lot. I may do a deeper dive video on this because there is actually a lot more that he stated. But what do you think of this? What do you make of it?
It's
Let me know.
freaking amazing.
We need
That's
to talk
what I
about the
think.
missing scientists because I just discovered one thing that no one else is looking at.
What?
Their spouses. So I was doing some research today on the missing scientists and just connecting all the interesting dots about how they all left their phones behind, and most of them left their
and their
wallets
wallets.
behind, and one of them had even wiped their phone clean and
Yeah.
cleared their iCloud. And just there's a lot of similarities. All of them just walked out.
It wasn't just their phone. They had two phones. One could have been business phone for the certain base. The other one might have been her personal phone. And she was not even a scientist or a researcher. She was somebody that had clearance to go in and clean the place. Yeah. He might not say it, but I just thought you should know.
Out in the morning. There's so many different things about these missing scientists that are
It's freaking
suspicious.
insane.
But now there's another one that just dropped.
You're
Ingrid Lane
suspicious.
went missing on October 15th, 2023. And I thought, okay, if this lady was working for Los Alamos, I'm going to be intrigued. Because I'd just done a bunch of research on these other missing scientists being associated with that lab. And what do you know? A great investigative journalist, Alicia Valdez Rodriguez, just dropped a bunch of info about this lady. And it turns out her husband worked for the DOD. And why is that significant? Well, because when I was looking into these other missing scientists, what I found was another strange pattern. Those that were married to people affiliated with these same laboratories and government agencies. Melissa Casillas worked as an administrative assistant at Los Alamos Lab.
Are they plants? I don't know. But I know when she went missing, her husband was like, yeah, I kind of expected that to happen. And then started dating and getting into a serious relationship not too long after she disappeared, which kind of looked bad on his part. But let's continue, shall we?
Laboratories. And her husband worked there as well. They usually carpooled, and she had dropped him off the morning that she went missing. The story gets weird because she went back to her house after she dropped him off and saw her daughter. She told her daughter that she went back to get her badge because she forgot it. But her husband told the police that she did have it. And he would have known that because they were going into the laboratory together. In fact, her family believes that he has something to do with her disappearance. Now, there's no record of Anthony Chavez or Steven Garcia having a significant other. But from all reports, both of them were very sound of mind. So one would think that if they're just walking away from their houses, they're doing so consciously. Which brings us to McCasland. Because he's the highest profile disappearance. He was a top-tier military leader. He had deep ties to the Pentagon. He served as commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory, managing a $4.4 billion.
And I'm pretty sure he was the highest stated in this rank of all these people, as far as militarily or whatever. But yeah, he's not the most recent, but he's the highest registered as far as militarily officiated.
$1 billion budget. He directly oversaw the most black budget programs in the United States.
And his wife's like, oh, well, he's been so far out of all this intelligence and stuff that nobody's supposed to know. Like, it shouldn't have even affected him, but she noticed certain things that were missing and certain things that were left behind. I just have to say to you guys, because a lot of people are so close-minded and don't freaking understand, and they're just like snowblind to a lot of facts. Once you're part of the military, you are not an individual. You're part of a mechanism, a freaking unit. You are not an individual. If you get the wrong tattoo, you get a sunburn, you get hurt, you get whatever might happen on what you think is your, in quotations, free time, can really affect you and your position in the military, because you are no longer an individual. You are government property. Don't forget.
And he has unique ties to UAP disclosure because he was actually a resource for Tom DeLonge. Yeah, the guy from Blink 182 that's super into UFOs and was doing this whole project about them. And just like the others, this guy left in the morning, didn't say where he was going, and his wife corroborates that story. But his wife,
nobody witnesses
get
it.
this, Susan McCaslin Wilkerson.
Yeah,
She
she's
reached
so
colonel
shady.
in the Air Force Reserve. She was a finalist for NASA Group 9. She held leadership roles with defense contractors as the program manager.
And you know how other people would be like, no, this is not right. We need to do this and this and that. She's like, no, this totally makes sense. He was this and this and that and that. And he left exactly these things behind. And he took exactly these things. Like, you were so on top of your house. You know this? I call bullshit, Susan McCaslin Wilkerson.
For Boeing SVS and positions at Raytheon. Which brings us to the most recent reporting, which actually was the oldest missing persons of all these different scientists, Ingrid Lane. Now, it was difficult to find details on her career, except for this investigative journalist that was able to uncover a bunch, because it was kind of stripped from the information. All these news articles were saying, oh, well, they didn't really want to release personal information about her. Why not her? Yeah. Why are we covering up her career path when we know about these other ones? I think it's because it was intentionally being suppressed. So she was...
Because even though something could seem like a really, really small thing, it might be one of the biggest things in this lineup. You never know.
A bioengineer and neuroscientist for Mind Research Network, which also contracted with Los Angeles.
And what have they been talking about recently? Mind control. And people talk about voices in their heads, etc. I remember back in the day when I believe they might have been first messing with this stuff, and I believe it was 1997. And I had left Colorado, left school and everything, to go back to Arkansas, my home, and register for school and do that. But surprisingly enough, these backwoods hillbillies were higher educated so far as points and stuff. They had a different point system than Colorado, so I would have had to do 2.5 more years instead of half a year more to graduate. And I was just like, hell no, I ain't doing that. But yeah.
Alamos National Laboratory. But her husband was an astrophysicist for the Department of Defense and builds software for directed energy weapons in the Air Force.
Oh my God.
So now we've got 5 scientists.
And we talked about that earlier. Like, let's go back to 9/11. Doodaloo, 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 doodaloo. Even before the fuselages and gas chambers of the aircraft that struck the buildings for 9/11 caught fire and caught the buildings on fire, to the point where people had to jump out of windows to escape. This is before the smoke got so bad. people were going up to the windows and ripping their clothes off and jumping out the window because it was just so hot they couldn't stand it. There was no fire there yet. There was nothing there that made sense as far as that went. And not everybody did that. It's where the energy directed weapon was pointing. And saying this, I'm just like, bitch, you're totally out of your fucking mind. But I gotta tell you guys, this stuff does actually exist. This is the only way, and me having this repetitive dream of my past life of falling hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet from these skyscrapers because I was an iron worker or whatever for these skyscrapers. You don't just jump out of a fucking window to get away from this, which is not even there yet. I don't know. It's insane. The things that the government knows, the things that the government is doing that are affecting us. And isn't it amazing, if you're doubting what I'm saying right now, how black vehicles with very, very dark, beyond legal tint windows were there in the early wee hours of the morning, several of them lined up to pick up all the gold bullion and all the other things that were down there in the cascade of chambers and move them where? Nobody knows. Follow your nose. Well, you can't do that because unless you're trained for that, you do not know how to follow gold. But anyways, after all the cleanup, all this other shit, they went and looked for the gold and it was no longer there. So many different things did not make sense. And why the heck? Okay, so your building gets hit by an aircraft, a 737 or whatever the heck it was. And the top part is on fire. And security is saying, nope, you can't leave. Go back to your station. I would put my middle fucking finger right in his face and tell him to fuck the fuck off. Fuck that guy. I ain't going back up, but so many people are taught to follow the word of the law to the extent of putting yourself in danger because they said so. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to defy who you think might be in control. Have these people just been able to leave? Hundreds and hundreds of lives could have been saved.
All
That's so
missing from
freaking
the same
crazy.
state within a
It's
100-mile
crazy.
radius, all near Los Alamos Labs.
Mhm.
3 of them who are married, all of their spouses have direct ties to government agencies.
Right.
Conspiracy is not the right word anymore.
No.
Who listens to this stuff? The
Me?
hood. I
The
got
hood.
the suburbs too.
Yup.
The suburbs. Yup. And the hood
That's
would
what I
approve
said.
you doing gangster rap over a Lady Gaga beat.
Yup.
They approve Miley Cyrus. They're gonna approve Gaga.
Oh shit.
Bro, I can't.
I got called out to an unattended death. It was an older guy, natural causes.
So I've been thinking about going into this field, but let's hear what this guy has to say. Gringo Furioso.
And he had been there for long enough for the neighbors to start to smell him.
Oh,
And I say
no.
neighbors loosely
That's a couple
because
weeks.
when we pulled up, this lady from next door starts marching over before I've even gotten all the way out of the truck and
Mhm.
says, well, it's about time you guys showed up, did
Oh my
something about this.
God. Did you
Yeah,
call
not
him?
this poor guy, or is the family coming, or even like the last crime scene, Karen,
I said,
where she
"Okay,
was just
Karen."
nosy. No, this was just pure irritation. Like this guy dying had somehow fucked up her schedule personally. This house definitely had a feeling that some of them get, as though everything kind of stopped, like in the middle of something. Sandwich, half eaten on the counter, a coffee cup in the sink. It's a little bit harder, I think, than the messy ones because it reminds you things can just stop. No more. Done. At any time. So we started working on the bedroom, just like standard containment stuff, removed the mattress, started taking everything else out so we could remove the carpet. But under the bed, there was a dog bed and an empty food bowl and a chew toy inside the dog bed. So where's the dog? We hadn't been told about a dog. So that definitely kind of changed the vibe, because either somebody got the dog out and that's why they didn't tell us, or that dog had been trapped inside with him the whole time. And like I tried to keep working and like push it out of my head, but then like you start noticing stuff, scratch marks on a door, the fact that like the food bowl was bone dry, so like it wasn't for water and I didn't see a water bowl around. I start panicking a little bit, I guess, because I'm like building this picture in my head of this animal that's been locked in there for days and getting thirsty, not understanding what the hell's happening. That was actually getting to me more than what was being cleaned. It was shortly after that I started to hear it. These little scratches. It was super soft, and at first I thought either a mouse or I'm, hearing things. Having found the dog bowl, I started looking around, and it wasn't like it was a big place. So I start walking around, I check the second bedroom, there's really nothing going on in there. And then I go into the bathroom, and there it is. Behind the toilet, wedged between like the toilet and the wall, is this tiny old dog. It was like a little beagle, like a little old beagle. And this poor thing was barely alive. It hardly acknowledged me. It didn't bark. It didn't move. It was clear that he had been in there by himself for a couple of days. There were scratches all on the inside of the door. Luckily, he had the toilet, so he'd been drinking water just fine, but he definitely looked like he hadn't eaten. We kind of all stopped just before we were about to wrap up and started calling the couple family members that we had contacts for. When they didn't answer, we called animal control to see if they could hold them until we got a hold of the family. And it was while we were calling people that I hear that same nasty woman voice. She's literally at the window in the kitchen, like damn near got her face pressed up against it. And she's like, "Are you guys almost done? It smells pretty bad out here." I tell you, sometimes staying professional was the hardest part of doing that job.
And guess what? Do you know the premise of people that insert themselves very harshly and coarsely into these investigations are actually the guilty parties? I would make her number one as far as who I thought did it.
The family confirmed that they wanted the dog, but because of the shape that it was in, Animal Services came out, and I think they took it to like a vet or something. And that should have been the end of it. House clean, dog saved, pretty good. But actually a couple weeks later, one of the family members reached out and said that the dog had actually made it and like fully recovered, and they had it at their house. And for some reason, like that hit me, I think, harder than actually cleaning the scene, because as a cleaner, you're just doing damage control. You're fixing the thing that was really bad, but like only to a point. You can make it clean again, but you can't erase what happened. You don't ever get to save somebody. For some reason, I could sort of become desensitized and able to compartmentalize death scenes perfectly fine, but animal stuff always gets me.
Seriously.
As an investigative reporter, I expose scams for a living, and what I found inside the streaming industry shocked me. Hi, I'm Mark Dalton, and for the last 12 years, I have...
Okay, so sorry guys, but we're gonna have to leave this part of the show. I just want to thank you so much for coming out tonight and hanging out with me on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. It was a pleasure. to hang out with you and hopefully entertain you. I don't know exactly what you like or what you want to do, but I'll try to fill your rabbit hole with something good. Thank you to all my friends out there, wherever you may be listening, beyond the Omniverse tonight. I had a wonderful time, and I can't wait to do it again tomorrow night, where we're going to have story time with me, TessaTNT. I was going to do that tonight, but all the drama in my life led to the fact that it was so freaking late. I was too tired to even read the intro and make sense of it, so I'm just glad you're still here, if you are. Don't forget, we're all in this together. Together, we can make the world better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there really is no us. Anyways, if you have the means, ability, or initiative, if you just feel kind-hearted at the moment, feel free to send, fling, or sling some green my way. It would really help me to get my website back and these things up and running that I no longer have, which I used to not worry about. But yeah, Wix took over and now we're all in hell. Night, night, live light. Take care of my aides. I'll see you next time. Crazy time, crazy place. Mwah. Good night.